My $10 bill almost bought a country. I am not joking. By lunch, banks were locking doors for me, rich men were begging, and my broke ex was trying to crawl back like she had invested early. The world's money reset overnight. Everyone else's fortune turned into trash. Mine stayed old, so my $10 could buy almost anything. First, it erased debts, then it bought buildings, then it started buying the city, and it all began when I put one old $10 bill on the Northlake Trust counter. The teller scanned it once, then her face went pale. Because the machine was not reading $10, it was reading so much money that security surrounded the counter. 5 minutes earlier, Alana Dyer still called me broke. That was the new world after the reset. Everyone else's balances and prices had been cut by 1,000. My cash had stayed old. Cedar Row, the house my father left me, was still sitting in Alana's mouth like she owned the deed. The rule was simple. If I sold Cedar Row before I understood the reset, Alana got my father's last gift. Bart Lang got a debtor, I got a leash, so I refused the leash and tested the bill. The teller glanced at the 10, smiled like she pitied me, then placed it under the scanner. Her smile died first. That was the first concrete thing I trusted all morning. A red line blinked under the glass. The teller's hand froze above the machine. Behind her, a silent light flashed over the branch door. I leaned on the counter. The teller swallowed and said, "Sir, please keep both hands visible." I looked at my empty hands. "Over $10? I asked. The teller nodded too fast. "Over that $10. A branch guard moved away from the wall. Another guard locked the lobby doors. People in the waiting chairs stopped complaining about mortgage resets and started staring at me. Cute! I had walked in wearing the same jacket Alana hated. Suddenly the private bank was guarding my pocket cash like it had teeth. The teller touched her earpiece and said, "Margot, I have a locked dollar alert at window 3. That was when Alana walked through the lobby doors with Bart Lang. Perfect timing. Trash loved an audience. Alana saw me at the counter and smiled with every tooth she had used on my patience. Bart stood beside her in a gray coat that looked expensive until he started talking. Alana said, "Carson, this is embarrassing. You came to beg the bank now?" The teller's eyes cut to Alana. The guard stepped closer to my 10. Bart laughed and raised his hand toward the bill. "Let me see what stunt he brought in." The guard caught Bart's wrist before Bart touched the counter. Bart's laugh cracked. I said, "Careful, Northlake seems attached to my stunt." Alana frowned at the guard. "Do you know who Bart is?" the guard said. "Ma'am, step behind the line." Alana blinked like the line had insulted her bloodline. I almost enjoyed that more than the money. The morning had started at the Dyer house with Rick Dyer tapping a calculator against his plate. Rick treated marriage like a vending machine that accepted sons-in-law. Sheila Dyer sat beside him drinking coffee and acting offended by oxygen. Rick said, "Carson, your sincerity is short." I said, "My sincerity has a number now?" Sheila pointed her spoon at me. "A man who wants our daughter sells what he has to prove it." Alana sat across from me and looked down at her ring finger, empty on purpose. Rick slid a paper across the table. He had written Cedar Row on it, my father's house, my roof, the one place my name still felt like it belonged to me. Rick said, "Sell that place. Put the proceeds toward the wedding. A real groom provides." I tapped the paper once. "My father left Cedar Row to me," I said. Sheila sniffed. "Dead people do not need houses." That line almost bought itself a funeral. Alana finally looked up and softened her voice. That was always her expensive trick. "Carson," Alana said, "I just need to know you choose me." Looked at the paper again. Then I slid it back to Rick. "I choose keeping my father's house out of your grocery list," I said. Rick's face purpled. Sheila gasped like I had slapped her spoon. Alana's softness vanished so fast it should have left skid marks. Rick barked, "Then borrow." Bart Lang offered private money. "You signed today, and we stop questioning your sincerity." That was their whole religion. Cash was love, debt was devotion, my inheritance was dessert. I stood. Alana grabbed my sleeve. "If you walk out, Carson, do not expect me to wait forever." I looked at her hand until she let go. "Forever got cheaper this morning," I said. "I left before Rick could draw the calculator. Too bad. It looked like the only thing in that room with honest math." Outside, Port Meridian had already gone weird. The corner news screen said prices had reset overnight. Bank balances, rent ledgers, consumer prices, private debts, payroll accounts, all divided down. People argued in front of ATMs. A man laughed at his old grocery receipt until he started crying. Then my phone lit up. Value, lock system, reset complete. Pre-reset cash and savings retained at locked value. Compounding wallet dormant. Public locked dollar action required. I stared at the words. The system skipped the lecture. Good. I hated teachers that morning. It gave me one rule I could test. My old cash still counted. Everyone else had been cut. I had a 10 in my wallet, a father's house under attack, and a fiancé who thought shame was a payment plan. So I followed Alana. She went 3 blocks from her parents' house to a cafe with smoked windows. I saw her through the glass before she saw me. Bart Lang sat across from her with his hand on the back of her chair. That answered one question and made 3 uglier ones. I stood near the service door and listened. Bart said, he refused Cedar Row? Alana rolled her eyes. For now, Bart said. You said he was easy. Alana laughed. Carson is sentimental. I just have to cry harder. Once the house transfers, we marry. After that, I file and take what I can. Bart stirred his coffee. Alana added, if I say I might be pregnant, he will panic. He always panics when family gets mentioned. There it was. My whole future, priced like used furniture. A sane man might have walked in and demanded an explanation. I was done buying explanations from people who marked them up. I took the $10 bill from my wallet and looked at it. Alana wanted sincerity. Fine. I gave Northlake Trust the first honest piece of it. That brought me back to the branch counter, with Alana and Bart staring at my bill like it had betrayed them personally. A woman in a navy suit came through the staff door. Margot Ellis, the banker the teller had called, moved fast and spoke low. Margot said, Mr. Weil, I am Margot Ellis. I manage private intake for Northlake Trust. I need to ask where this bill came from. I said, my wallet. Bart snorted. That is his whole financial statement. Alana touched Bart's sleeve, confident again. Carson, stop! You are making this sad! Margot did not look at her. Margot looked at the 10. Then Margot turned the bill inside a clear sleeve and placed it into a second scanner. 3 green lights appeared. A number flashed on her tablet. She inhaled through her nose and pressed her thumb to the counter screen. The branch guard straightened. Bart noticed. Finally, Margot said, Mr. Weil, this is a verified locked dollar instrument. Alana laughed once, sharp and fake. A verified what? I said. Sounds like sincerity got a raise. Margot continued. At current reset conversion, this single bill clears the largest private mortgage liability on today's branch sheet? The lobby went quiet. A man in a suit looked down at his loan folder and then at my jacket. A woman near the elevator whispered, That is $10? The teller whispered back, Old 10. Bart's mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. Alana said, No, Carson works at Harborline Analytics. He is a junior analyst. I said, Still am. Bart stepped toward Margot. Run it again. He forged something. I know his profile. Margot's polite face chilled. Mr. Lang, Margot said, you are standing inside a locked dollar security event. Touch the counter again and security removes you. Bart puffed up. I have private credit through Northlake. Margot said. Then you know better than to interfere. He treated warnings as invitations to audition for clown school. Bart pointed at me and said, This man is marrying my associate's daughter because he needs money. He was shopping for a private loan this morning. Alana grabbed that rope with both hands. Alana said, Carson, tell them. My family tried to help you. You begged us for time. I turned toward her. Sheila called Cedar Row dead weight, I said. Rick priced your wedding like a hostage drop. You told Bart you would cry, marry me, file and take half. Alana's face emptied. Bart whispered, Idiot. That whisper was for her. Margot heard it anyway. So did the guard, so did half the lobby. Alana tried to recover. She stepped closer, lowered her voice, and gave me the soft eyes again. Carson, Alana said, you misunderstood. I was scared. I said, you sounded organized. That landed. Her chin trembled, but her eyes kept calculating. She looked at the counter, at Margot, then at the 10. There was the woman I almost married. Hurt later. Math first. A side door opened. Harold K. entered with 2 more guards and the cleanest silver tie in Port Meridian. I knew he mattered because Margot moved 1 step aside without being asked. Harold said, Mr. Weil, I am Harold Key, Regional Manager for Northlake Trust. Your locked dollar deposit has been accepted for private protection. Bart's face lost color. Harold placed a matte black card on the counter. It looked heavier than Bart's entire personality. Harold said, This obsidian black card is temporary until your full account suite is assigned. It will clear reset liabilities against locked dollar value. Alana stared at the card. Then she stared at me. Her voice changed so hard it needed a receipt. Carson, Alana whispered, Baby, why didn't you tell me? The lobby ate that alive. A man near the chairs coughed into his hand. The teller looked down. Even Margot's mouth twitched. Bart snapped. Alana, she ignored him and grabbed my arm. Carson, listen, Alana said. We can still fix this. My parents were stressed. Bart pushed the loan idea. I always knew you were special. I peeled her fingers off my sleeve one by one. No, I said. You knew I owned Cedar Row. Bart stepped back toward the exit. Harold looked at him. Mr. Lang, Harold said, Northlake Trust is reviewing all private lending exposure tied to coercive reset conduct. Your credit access is suspended pending review. Bart froze. Alana's head whipped toward him. Suspended? She said. Bart said, Harold, be reasonable. Harold did not blink. You brought yourself into a security event and identified your own conduct. Bart's fake rich sponsor mask slid off. Under it was just an old lender with no leash. He was cooked and somehow still trying to season himself. Bart pointed at Alana. She contacted me? Alana gasped. You told me Carson would fold. I took the obsidian black card from the counter. Their romance lasted exactly 1 credit review. Alana lunged again and caught my coat near the pocket. Carson, please, Alana said. I made a mistake. I looked at Margot. Can she touch me in here? I asked. Margot's face went beautifully blank. No, Mr. Weil, Margot said. She cannot. The guards removed Alana from my coat. She fought dignity for 3 steps and lost all 3. Carson, Alana cried, you cannot throw me away over 1 conversation. I said, you priced my father's house over breakfast. The guard opened the door. She shouted from the lobby line, you still owe me sincerity. I held up the black card. Northlake accepted mine, I said. The door shut on her face. Bart stood beside the chairs, staring at his phone while private credit disappeared 1 notification at a time. Every buzz took another inch off his spine. Margot walked me to a side counter. She did not grovel. That was why I liked her. Margot said, Mr. Weil, your account is visible to people who watch locked dollar activity. You should expect attention. I said, from people worse than Bart? Margot looked at the lobby door Alana had just slapped with her palm. From people with better manners, Margot said. And worse habits. Good banker, terrible comfort. My phone vibrated before I reached the sidewalk. Spend mission. Use 1 locked dollar in public within 2 hours. Reward, compounding wallet activation and physical starter enhancement. Failure, wallet growth pauses. Then Hallie texted me from the airport. Hallie Weil, my ride is late, some rich idiot is bothering freshmen, and airport coffee costs less than gum now. You alive? I looked back at Northlake Trust. Alana was outside with Bart, screaming at him while he pretended his phone still loved him. I had 2 hours, 1 locked dollar to burn, and my little sister waiting under fluorescent airport lights with a rich idiot nearby. The black card felt warm in my hand, so I walked past Alana without slowing down. She grabbed at the air where my sleeve used to be. I said, ask Bart for sincerity. Then I went to buy the most expensive cheap coffee in Port Meridian. The spend mission gave me 2 hours to burn 1 locked dollar in public. That sounded easy until the airport cashier told me a large coffee cost .003 reset cents. Hallie Weil, my younger sister, stood beside me with a duffel bag, a freshman lanyard, and the same expression she used before breaking bad news or somebody's wrist. She looked at the menu and said, so one of your old dollars buys what, the airport? I said, I am trying to start smaller. Guy behind her laughed. That was Chase Fenwick, though I only knew his name because one of his friends kept saying it like a password. Chase had polished shoes, an East Harbor University jacket, and a family office card. He flashed for no reason except spiritual illness. He leaned toward Hallie and smiled. Chase said, freshman orientation tip, avoid men who count coffee money out loud. Hallie looked at his shoes. Orientation tip, Hallie said. Avoid men who dress like their father's spreadsheet. I loved my sister. Chase's friends snorted, then remembered who paid for their ride and stopped. Chase eyed my jacket. Is this your boyfriend? Hallie grabbed my arm and squeezed hard enough to warn me she was annoyed. Chase saw the grab and smiled wider. Great. Side chaos in under 2 minutes. I said, brother. Chase said, same poverty, different label. The cashier froze with my obsidian black card in her hand. She had just seen the payment screen. Chase had only seen my jacket. He had chosen the wrong evidence, which was becoming a local epidemic. The system clock blinked in the corner of my vision. Spend mission, 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 11 seconds remaining. Public locked dollar spend required. I asked the cashier, how many people are in this terminal cafe? The cashier stared at the screen, including gate staff, maybe 200. Good, I said. Coffee, breakfast, bottled water, pastries, everyone here, put it on the card. The cashier whispered, sir, the total still may not reach 1 locked dollar. Chase laughed so loud a pilot turned around. Chase said, he's buying muffins with imaginary money. I looked at the cashier. Add prepaid coffee for every arriving freshman shuttle, I said. Then add whatever those flight crews keep pretending is food. The cashier tapped. Her hand started shaking. The screen blinked. Approved. Then the cafe speakers chimed. The cashier leaned into the counter microphone and said, Terminal cafe announcement. Breakfast and coffee are covered for all customers in this terminal by Mr. Carson Weil. The line went quiet. Then an old man in a wheelchair raised his muffin like a trophy. A gate agent said, for everyone? The cashier said, everyone. The terminal shifted toward me like a tide with roller bags. Hallie laughed into her sleeve. Chase's mouth did the thing rich idiots do when reality leaves without them. I said, careful, Chase. Free coffee is dangerous. It makes commoners energetic. He recovered badly. Chase stepped onto a chair near the condiment stand and said, "Do you people really cheer because some delivery-looking nobody bought you Bart airport coffee?" That was his mistake. The crowd had accepted charity. They had not accepted being insulted by a man standing above the sugar packets. A woman in scrubs said, "Get off the chair, trust fund waffle." A baggage handler said, "I want mine black and I want him to apologize to the muffins." A freshman filmed Chase from 2 feet away. Chase pointed at the phone. "Delete that." The freshman said, "Say please." Hallie leaned toward me. "He is going to die over a croissant." "Socially," I said. "Airport security hates paperwork." Chase jumped down and shoved past a line of people reaching for breakfast bags. A grandmother's rolling suitcase clipped his ankle. A pilot stepped aside with full professional innocence. Chase stumbled into a display of protein bars and came up wearing 2 promotional stickers on his sleeve. The terminal started chanting, "Apologize to the muffins." They pointed at Chase. He peeled one sticker off and shouted, "My family owns half this campus pipeline." Hallie said, "Then your family should buy you balance." His friends abandoned him first. One backed away with a free latte. Another pulled his hood up. The third looked at me and said, "Thanks for breakfast, Mr. Weil," like Chase was already a ghost. Beautiful betrayal. Warm, petty, caffeinated. A girl near the pickup counter posted the clip to Flashdeck. The caption hit before Chase escaped the cafe. "Chase Fenwick hates free breakfast." Hallie showed me the screen. I said, "That is going to age poorly for him." Hallie said, "It aged poorly while uploading." The system agreed. Spend mission complete. Compounding wallet active. Reward granted triple grip. Heat snapped through my fingers. I flexed once. My knuckles tightened around nothing, and the metal napkin dispenser beside me crumpled inward like it owed me money. The cashier stared at it. I placed it gently back on the counter. "Add that to the bill," I said. She whispered, "I think you own the bill." That was probably true. Still, manners cost less than enemies. Chase regrouped near the shuttle doors with his friends and a face that had lost to carbohydrates. He saw Hallie leaving and tried one last save. Chase said, "Hallie, my car can take you to campus. You do not need charity shuttle energy." Hallie looked at his stained sleeve. "Your jacket lost to breakfast," Hallie said. "I am good." The shuttle crowd laughed. Chase flushed red. He tried one more save because shame had apparently given him cardio. Chase stepped in front of the freshman shuttle door and flashed his Fenwick family office card at the driver. Chase said, "This route receives family support. She rides with me." The driver hesitated. That tiny pause told me Chase had done this before. Rich boys loved soft doors. They pressed until someone smaller learned to move. Hallie moved first. She hooked her duffel strap around Chase's ankle and tugged once. He did a little dance against the curb, all expensive shoes and no survival. The shuttle line laughed. Hallie said, "My brother said earned violence only. That was transportation management." I tapped the obsidian black card against the shuttle reader. The reader chirped, then flashed a private route override so bright the driver sat straighter. I said, "Take every freshman to East Harbor University. Front gate first, no Fenwick detours." The driver looked at Chase's card, then at mine. The driver shut the door in Chase's face. Chase slapped the glass. "Hallie, you will regret embarrassing me." Hallie held up her free muffin through the window. She said, "You lost to breakfast twice." The shuttle pulled away. Chase ran 2 steps beside it, realized the crowd was filming again, and stopped like his dignity had a low battery. A girl in a varsity hoodie called from the line, "The guy who pays for breakfast has a brutal sister." I corrected her because accuracy mattered. "Hallie is brutal by herself," I said. "I just pay for snacks." Hallie heard me through the cracked window and gave me a thumbs up without looking back. That mattered. Protecting Hallie meant letting her swing first when she wanted. Chase watched the shuttle leave, then turned on me because his better target had escaped. I walked past him. He blocked my shoulder. "Enjoy your little viral trick," Chase said. "East Harbor remembers names like mine." I leaned close enough that only he heard me. "Good," I said. "Practice remembering mine." Then I left him standing under a cafe sign that still flashed my paid order number. My phone rang before I reached the curb. Vivienne Ames, my manager at Harborline Analytics, never called before 9 unless something had gone feral. She usually kept her voice sharp enough to cut office gossip. This time it shook. Vivienne said, "Carson, where are you?" I said, "At the airport, feeding strangers." Vivienne paused for half a second. "I refuse to ask," Vivienne said. "Dirk Elson is in your workstation." That got my attention. Dirk Elson was the kind of coworker who called himself strategic because thief sounded ugly on a resume. He had been circling my Harborline pitch for a week, laughing at my junior title while asking for my raw files. I said, "What is he touching?" Vivienne lowered her voice. "Your client deck." The board moved the emergency sale meeting up. Payroll freezes in less than an hour if the buyer takes control. Dirk is walking in with your pitch. The airport had just made me public. Harborline was about to make me useful. By the time I reached Harborline Analytics, the flash deck clip had spread through the office. That helped and hurt at the same time. The receptionist stared at me like I might buy her keyboard. A payroll clerk stepped out of the hallway and whispered, "Are you the locked dollar guy?" I said, "Depends who owes me money." She vanished so fast her badge hit the wall. Side chaos number 2. Fame was already leaking through doors. Vivienne met me outside the conference room. She wore a slate blouse, held her tablet like a weapon, and looked furious enough to make the HVAC behave. Vivienne said, "Dirk told them you panicked after the reset and abandoned the pitch." I said, "Dirk lies in complete sentences now?" Vivienne's mouth twitched. Then the conference room door opened. Dirk Elson stepped out with my flash drive between 2 fingers. He smiled when he saw me. "Carson," Dirk said, "great timing. We were just discussing professional responsibility." I looked at my drive. "Give it back," I said. Dirk raised the drive higher. "This belongs to Harborline now. You should have protected company assets." Vivienne snapped, "Dirk, enough!" Dirk ignored her. He always ignored women until they signed his review. He leaned closer and lowered his voice for the hallway audience. "Go home, Carson," Dirk said. "Your 15 minutes bought muffins, not authority." There it was. Insult, overreach, public hallway. I love deficient idiots. Dirk turned to walk back into the conference room. I caught his wrist. Triple grip fired to my palm. Dirk's smile collapsed. His knees bent before his pride did. The flash drive dropped from his fingers and landed in my other hand. The hallway went silent. A copywriter whispered, "Did he just fold Dirk?" "Yes." Dirk folded. "Beautifully, like office laundry." Dirk hissed. "Let go!" Said, "Say it belongs to me." Dirk glared. "You are hurting me." I tightened 1 inch. Dirk gasped. "It belongs to Carson." Vivienne stepped closer, eyes locked on the drive. Then the conference room speaker crackled behind Dirk. A buyer's voice said, "We are proceeding without the junior analyst. Bring the pitch in, Mr. Elson." Vivienne looked at me and went pale. "Carson," Vivienne said, "Dirk is carrying your pitch into the conference room right now because they think payroll is already dead." Released Dirk. He stumbled into the wall and clutched his wrist. I picked up my drive. "Then he can watch me present it," I said. The conference room door opened wider, and every executive inside turned toward the hallway. Behind me, the payroll clerk whispered again, "The locked dollar guy is here." Dirk had stolen my pitch. Too bad for him. My hand had just learned how to collect interest. Dirk Elson walked into the conference room holding his wrist and wearing the face of a man who had just learned theft could sprain. I followed him with my flash drive. The buyer at the far end of the table looked annoyed before I said a word. He wore a reset-priced suit, a reset-priced watch, and the old confidence of a man who thought desperation still worked at full value. Vivienne Ames entered behind me. She shut the door. That mattered. Vivienne never shut a door unless someone inside was about to deserve privacy. The buyer said, "This meeting concerns Harborline Analytics leadership." I said, "Good." Dirk brought stolen leadership into it. Dirk barked. "He assaulted me in the hallway." I held up the drive. "You dropped my pitch while lying," I said. That is a busy morning. Few employees stood outside the glass wall, pretending not to watch. The payroll clerk did the worst pretending. She had her phone timer open. 40 minutes. That was the stake. If Harborline signed the emergency sale before payroll cleared, half the floor lost checks, Vivienne lost control, and Dirk became the hero of a company he had tried to gut. The buyer tapped the table. "We have an offer on record," the buyer said. "Harborline is distressed. Payroll is frozen. Your internal drama is irrelevant." Dirk found his courage in the buyer's mouth. Dirk said, "Exactly. Carson is emotional. I stabilized the client strategy." Vivienne cut in, clear and sharp. "Dirk stole his pitch." Dirk sneered at her. "Vivienne, defend him all you want. It makes you look attached." That one landed ugly. The room looked at Vivienne instead of the drive. Dirk smiled again. He should have learned from the first smile. I plugged the drive into the screen. "Dirk," I said, "explain slide 12. He blinked. The payroll clerk outside the glass lifted her phone. 37 minutes. I clicked once. One red note filled the wall. The buyer's assistant, a young woman with a red folder, whispered, "That is the import hold." The buyer snapped, "Stay out of this." Too late, the room had heard her. I asked Dirk, "What happens when the reset window catches 2 missing vendor imports?" Dirk said, "The model accounts for volatility." The buyer's assistant went pale. I looked at her. "Say it." She swallowed. "It blocks synthetic retention. It kills the buyer's growth number." The buyer stopped tapping. Vivienne looked at the screen, then at me. Dirk said, "You planted that after I copied it." I laughed once. "Dirk, you are confessing with accessories." The payroll clerk outside lifted the timer higher. 34 minutes. I looked at the buyer. "Your acquisition price is built on the fake number Dirk hoped would survive until payroll died." Dirk slapped his good hand on the table. "He is bluffing," Dirk said. "Carson cannot cover payroll. He cannot even afford wedding sincerity." Ah, there it was. Alana's poison had traveled faster than coffee. Vivian's eyes flicked to me. She had heard enough to know it hurt. She also knew me well enough to step back. That was why Vivian survived rooms like this. I placed the obsidian black card on the table. The buyer looked at it. Dirk looked at it. The employees outside pressed closer to the glass. I said, "Your emergency sale offer is now a tip." The buyer frowned. "That card does not change corporate debt." I tapped Margot Ellis's saved contact and set my phone on speaker. Margot said, "Northlake Trust confirms Mr. Weil has available locked dollar capacity to clear Harborline's reset payroll exposure and bridge the disputed liability." Then she hung up. Perfect banker, one cut, no speech. The buyer's face tightened. Dirk said, "No, that is fake." I looked at him. "Use the same wrist and point to the fake part," I said. Dirk kept his hand to himself. Smart growth. Late but still growth. The buyer slid the sale folder back toward himself. "We may need to pause the acquisition," the buyer said. Vivian said, "You may need to leave." Employees outside heard that. Someone clapped once. Then the payroll clerk clapped harder, which made it official in the only way that mattered. Dirk tried one last time. He stood and jabbed a finger at me. "You cannot just walk in with mystery money and take over a company," Dirk said. I said, "Watch me do it with regular posture." Vivienne covered a smile with her tablet. The buyer packed his folder. The executives who had ignored me all month suddenly developed eye contact. One asked if I needed water. Another asked whether my chair was comfortable. I looked at Dirk. "Badge," I said. Dirk laughed like I had told a joke. Vivienne held out her hand. "Badge," Vivienne said. Dirk's laugh died. He dropped the badge into her palm. Outside the glass, the employees saw it. That mattered more than the paperwork ever could. Before this meeting, Dirk was the safe choice. After it, he was a wrist injury with a resume. The payroll clerk's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, then slapped both hands over her mouth. "Payroll cleared," she shouted through the glass. The hallway exploded. People clapped, cursed, laughed, and hugged the printer for some reason. Office people under pressure get weird. Let them. Vivienne handed Dirk's badge to the security guard by the door. "Walk him out," Vivienne said. Dirk pointed at me as the guard took his elbow. "This is illegal," Dirk said. I said, "So was stealing my pitch. Mine paid better." The guard removed him. The buyer left next, trying to keep his dignity folded under one arm. Nobody helped him carry it. Vivienne stayed beside the table. For one breath, she looked tired instead of sharp. Then she straightened. "You saved payroll," Vivienne said. I said, "Dirk helped. He made the room easy to hate." Vivienne laughed, then looked away too quickly. The payroll clerk opened the door and stuck her head in. "Mr. Weil," she said, "the floor wants to know if they should call you owner, miracle, or lock dollar guy." I said, "Lock dollar guy sounds least lawsuit shaped." She nodded like that was policy and vanished. Vivienne said, "They are going to follow you now." "Then they need someone worth following day to day," I said. I pushed the sale folder toward her. "You run Harborline operations," I said. Dirk leaves, payroll stays clean. If anybody asks why, tell them the thief had bad grip strength. Vivienne stared at me, her cheeks colored, and for once she did not weaponize sarcasm fast enough. "Carson," Vivienne said, "you barely know what you bought." "I know who tried to steal it," I said. "I know who defended it. That was enough for today." She looked down at the card, then at the employees still staring through the glass. Vivienne lifted the folder. The hallway cheered again. One man yelled, "Lock dollar guy!" The payroll clerk yelled, "I started that. Good for her." Brand ownership mattered. My phone buzzed during the noise. Jude Callan. Jude had been my best friend since we were broke enough to split gas station sandwiches and call it meal planning. He never asked for help unless the wall had already fallen on him. I answered. Jude said, "Carson, are you busy?" I looked at the clapping office, Dirk's empty chair, and Vivienne still blushing at my promotion like she wanted to argue with oxygen. "Yes," I said. "So ask fast." Jude exhaled. "My mother is at Riverside Medical Center. Rosa needs a transfer. They say the reset changed the coverage. I can handle it if I can get a few days." That meant the wall had already fallen. Jude always wrapped panic in pride and called it a plan. I said, "Where are you standing?" "Third floor billing desk," Jude said. I was already walking. Vivienne followed me into the hallway. "Another crisis?" she asked. "Friend's mother," I said. Vivienne looked like she wanted to come, then looked back at the floor that now depended on her. I pointed at the glass room. "Run the company," I said. Vivienne lifted her chin. "Do not make that sound like a consolation prize." "It is a threat," I said. "Be scary." She smiled. That smile was going to create problems later. At the time, I only knew it made the office stand straighter. Riverside Medical Center smelled like disinfectant and reset panic. Families crowded the billing area with folders, cards, and faces that had slept badly. Jude stood at the side of the desk in the same hoodie he wore when life hit too hard. He saw me and immediately tried to look fine. Terrible acting. Loyal friend, bad liar, Jude said. You did not have to come. Said, you called me while pretending you were not asking. That counts. A billing clerk behind the desk said, Mr. Kellen, without the transfer deposit, the VIP recovery wing cannot accept Rosa Kellen today. Jude's jaw tightened. I stepped beside him. How much? I asked. The clerk named a reset figure that would have ruined Jude and barely disturbed the old dollar in my pocket. The value lock system flickered once. Public rescue spend eligible. Locked dollar action will activate observation reward. The reward could wait. Rosa needed the room. I placed one locked dollar on the counter. The clerk stared at it. Then she stopped breathing for a second. The clerk pressed a button under the desk. Jude grabbed my sleeve. Carson, what did you just do? I said. Skip the part where you sell your pride for an extension. The third-floor supervisor arrived at a speed that qualified as cardio. 2 orderlies appeared behind her. A doctor who had ignored Jude 10 minutes earlier suddenly remembered posture. The supervisor said, Mr. Weil, Riverside Medical Center can prepare Mrs. Kellen's transfer immediately. Jude whispered, Mrs.? They called her Rosa 5 minutes ago. Money teaches manners, I said. Rosa Kellen arrived in a wheelchair, pale but awake, with a blanket tucked around her knees. She saw Jude, then saw me, then saw the orderlies standing like she was royalty. Rosa said, Jude, did you rob a prince? Jude choked. I said, only the reset. Rosa looked at the youngest orderly and smiled. Well, Rosa said, if I am being carried to VIP, I want the handsome one on the left pushing. I have suffered enough. The orderly turned red. Jude covered his face. The supervisor laughed before she could stop herself. Rosa winked at me as they wheeled her toward the private elevator. Warm rescue, public status. One embarrassed son. Perfect balance. Jude caught my shoulder. His eyes were wet, which annoyed him more than it moved me. I owe you, Jude said. I shook my head. You owe your mother a better poker face, I said. He laughed through it. Then the system fired behind my eyes. Reward granted, measure I. Thin lines appeared across the hallway for half a second. Angles, distances, contact points. Then they faded. I blinked hard. Jude said, you good? I looked past him. Near the vending machines, a young woman in a Fenwick Energy Lab hoodie reached for a dropped card. A hospital volunteer called her Lara Fenwick, and half the hallway noticed the surname. An older woman stepped into Lara's path. Their shoulders barely brushed. The old woman threw herself backward like gravity owed her a bonus. A man beside her lifted his phone before she hit the floor. Measure I flashed red across my vision. Contact angle false. Fall staged. Lara Fenwick froze, one hand still out, eyes sharp enough to know she had been trapped and angry enough to make it worse. The old woman pointed up at her and screamed, She shoved me! Every phone in that hallway turned. I had just saved payroll and moved Rosa to VIP. The day should have taken a nap. Too bad. Someone had picked a public floor, a famous last name, and the exact angle my new reward could read. I stepped toward Lara before the crowd closed around her. At the time, I thought Northlake Trust was the day's strangest purchase. The next block taught me a city block could be cheaper than dinner. I reached Lara Fenwick before the hospital crowd swallowed her. The old woman on the floor clutched her hip and screamed like gravity had filed assault charges. Her partner already had his phone up. That was the first bad detail. Lara stood beside the vending machines in a Fenwick Energy Lab hoodie, one hand still open, eyes sharp and furious. The hallway saw a rich last name and a fallen old woman. They were choosing their villain before the woman finished groaning. Measure I drew a red line across the floor. Contact angle false, fall staged. The system kept it brief. Bless it. The old woman pointed at Lara and yelled, She shoved me. I want security. Lara snapped, I never touched you. The partner shoved his phone closer. Say that again. The Fenwick family can afford basic decency. I stepped between his lens and Lara. The partner barked, Move, delivery boy. I looked at Lara. Did your shoulder touch her? Lara said, No. The old woman clutched her right hip. I crouched near her left shoe and tapped the floor once. You fell from the wrong side, I said. She froze. The partner's phone dipped 1 inch. I pointed at the scuff mark behind her heel. You pushed off your left foot before Lara reached the card. Then you grabbed your right hip because you forgot which side sold the fall. The hallway leaned in. The old woman shouted, He is making things up. I said, Then stand up and fall again, same angle. I will apologize if you can repeat it. That offer cooked her faster than any lecture. Laura's mouth twitched. The partner tried to recover. This is intimidation. We have video. Lara stepped beside me and smiled at the phone. Good, Lara said. Fenwick Energy Lab pays very well for clean staged motion samples. Sign your names and we will buy the clip. The partner stopped recording. The old woman sat up too fast for a broken victim. A nurse near the desk crossed her arms. The crowd noticed the recovery. That mattered more than any report. I said, Careful, your miracle healing is public. The old woman muttered a curse and scrambled to her feet. The partner grabbed her elbow. They pushed through the crowd without waiting for security, doctors, or the dramatic lawsuit they had promised 15 seconds earlier. Laura called after them, "Next time, rehearse both hips." The crowd laughed. The man with the phone nearly walked into a trash can. "Good, fraud deserved cardio." Jude came out of the elevator just in time to see the scammers retreat. He looked at Laura, then at me. Jude said, "I leave you alone for 5 minutes." I said, "The hospital attacked first." Laura picked up her dropped access card and studied me. Laura said, "Carson Weil, airport coffee, harbor line payroll, and now hallway fraud control." I said, "You forgot muffins." She laughed once. "Chase forgot them too. He is still angry." The Fenwick name clicked harder this time. Chase Fenwick had already tried to corner Hallie at the airport. Laura carried the same surname and none of his clown perfume. Useful difference. My phone flashed. Value. Lock response confirmed. Reward granted. Scam bell. A sharp little chime rang behind my ear. Then it pointed past the hospital doors. Laura noticed my stare. "What did you hear?" she asked. "Trouble with rhythm," I said. Laura looked toward the street. "Then you may like dinner. Friar's Corner feeds half my lab, and the owner just texted me that Gretchen Pry is emptying their kitchen by 5. I asked, "Who is Gretchen Pry?" Laura's smile went cold. "Old rail yard district lease tyrant. She collects vendors like teeth." That sounded like my kind of trash. I told Jude to stay with Rosa. I told Laura to send the address. Then I called Vivienne Ames, the new operator of Harborline Analytics, because I needed one person near me who could read a distressed asset faster than I could say chicken. Vivienne answered with office noise behind her. Vivienne said, "Carson, if you bought another company, blink twice." "I might buy dinner," I said. Vivienne sighed. "With you, that means zoning damage." "Come to Old Rail Yard District," I said. "Bring your worst face." "My worst face is for auditors," Vivienne said. "Then bring the second worst." Old Rail Yard District sat under rusted train arches and smelled like frying oil, rain, and people trying to survive rent. Every stall had a line. Every vendor watched the same woman in a red coat walk down the aisle with 2 men carrying padlocks. Gretchen Pry looked comfortable. That was worse than strong. She stopped in front of Friar's Corner, the chicken shop with a yellow awning and a line of students out the door. The owner stood behind the counter, hands white around a receipt spike. Gretchen said, 5 o'clock, Friar's out, doors locked, your little gold tokens do not pay rent. A bowl of gold-painted fry tokens sat beside the register. Each token had a stamped chicken wing and a number. Customers held them like tiny medals. Laura whispered, "Loyalty tokens. Buy 10 meals, get 1 free. Students collect them." Gretchen picked one up and smeared. "Sentimental junk." She saw me beside Laura and smiled. "Another student hero?" Gretchen asked. I said, "Worse, hungry adult." Gretchen looked at my jacket, then at Laura's hoodie. "Tell your lab princess I do not take pity orders," Gretchen said. "Every stall here pays through me or they vanish." The owner flinched. The vendors along the aisle heard that. So did Vivienne, who arrived behind me with her tablet and that dangerous office comm. Vivienne said, "She controls subleases. The ground note sits somewhere else." Gretchen's eyes sharpened. "Who are you?" Vivienne said. "The person who read faster than you bragged." I liked her more every crisis. That was inconvenient. A woman with a ring light cut through the crowd before Gretchen answered. Sky Latham, the Flashdeck creator whose repost had turned Chase into the terminal muffin villain, pointed her camera at the padlocks. Sky said, "Carson Weil buying chicken from a rent goblin. My audience is eating today." Vivienne looked at Sky, then at me. Her expression cooled by 3 degrees. "Nice! Jealousy with a battery pack." Gretchen pointed at Sky. "Turn that off." Sky grinned. "Say please, and I might zoom in slower." Gretchen grabbed the token bowl and dumped it across the counter. Gold pieces scattered over the floor. The Friar's Corner owner made a sound like something broke in his chest. That settled it. I placed my obsidian black card beside one fallen token. "Vivienne," I said, "who holds the district package?" Vivienne looked at her tablet. "Northlake Trust has the reset distress note. Gretchen has operating options. Thin ones." Gretchen laughed. "You think a card buys a district?" I called Margot Ellis. Margot answered after 1 ring. "Mr. Weil, please tell me this is quieter than the hospital clip." "It has chicken," I said. Margot paused. "That is not an answer." I said, "Old Rail Yard District. Distress note. I want control before 5. Gretchen laughed again, louder for the crowd. I let her. Arrogance was just free background music before collapse. Margot said, "Northlake can clear transfer control against locked dollar capacity. 1 authorization from you." Looked at Gretchen. She was still smiling. "Authorize," I said. My phone vibrated once. Margot said, "Control file to your account. Gretchen Pry's operating options are subordinate to owner direction as of now." At Friar's Corner, one of Gretchen's padlock men had already raised a lock toward the door. His phone buzzed. He stopped mid-swing. The padlock man looked at the screen, at me, then at Gretchen. "New owner instructions?" he asked. "One sentence, one frozen lock." The public loss arrived immediately. Gretchen stopped smiling. I pointed at the lock. "Hand it to her," I said. The padlock man gave Gretchen her own threat. I picked up a goldfry token and held it where every vendor could see. "Every vendor who puts one of these on the counter stays open under me," I said. "Rent freezes for 30 days, equipment stays, customers eat." The aisle erupted. A taco vendor grabbed a token from the floor. A florist held one up like a badge. A coffee stall owner slapped one on his register so hard the drawer popped open. Gretchen spun around. "Do not touch those." Nobody listened. That was the sound of an empire losing retail tenants to chicken coins. She kicked at the tokens. "Bad choice." I said. "Pick them up." Gretchen stared at me. I said, "Every token you scattered is now a vendor marker. Pick them up, apologize to Friar's Corner, and maybe I let one of your options survive the week." Phones rose. Sky whispered, "Oh, she is deep fried." Gretchen looked around for one loyal face. She found 0. Then she bent down. One knee hit the floor. The crowd lost its mind. The Friar's Corner owner covered his mouth. Laura laughed under her breath. Vivienne's jealousy cracked into a smile despite herself. Gretchen picked up the first token and placed it on the counter. "Sorry," Gretchen said. Hallway scammers ran. Lease tyrants knelt. Port Meridian was having a productive afternoon. Then scam bell rang again. This time, it was ugly. I saw 3 men at the mouth of the service alley. Ball caps low, hands too still. One broad man stood behind them, half his face hidden by a hood in the stairwell shadow. His gaze skipped Gretchen and fixed on me. I stepped close to Vivienne. "Take Laura and the vendors inside Friar's Corner," I said. Vivienne's eyes narrowed. "Carson, second worst face later," I said. "Now move." She hated obeying. She did it anyway. Sky lowered her ring light. I told her, "Make the alley loud." Sky's grin returned. "How loud?" "Fake movie loud." I walked into the service alley before the men came out and scared the vendors. The broad man stayed in shadow. The 3 others spread with the confidence of people who had never been laughed at by paid extras. The first thug said, "You bought the wrong block." I said, "I kept the receipt." The second thug pulled a short bat from his coat. Behind me, Sky shouted into flash deck, "Open casting call. Emergency street film scene at Old Railyard District. Paid reset cash. Bring cameras, fake badges, and dramatic running." The thugs looked confused. That bought us 8 seconds. I used 6. The first swing came at my ribs. Measure I drew the line. Triple grip caught the bat near the handle. I yanked once, and the thug followed it face first into a stack of empty fry buckets. The buckets exploded across the alley. The second thug froze. Then 40 strangers rushed in screaming, "Rolling!" One wore a fake boom mic made from a mop. Another had sunglasses at sunset. A third threw reset bills in the air like cheap confetti. Sky had weaponized theater. The alley filled with phones, lights, extras, and money rain. The thugs suddenly had an audience, 1,000 live viewers, and no clean swing. The broad man in the hood took one step back. I saw the side of his jaw before he turned. Sky's camera caught it. The second thug whispered, "Captain, too many cameras." The captain gave one sharp hand sign. They retreated. The first thug crawled out of the fry buckets and ran after them with a bucket stuck on one shoe. Some men leave with dignity. He chose percussion. Sky laughed so hard her camera shook. The extras cheered. The vendors flooded the alley behind Vivienne, waving gold fry tokens like tiny riot flags. The Friar's Corner owner handed me one clean token from under the register. He said, "First one was my father's, for whoever kept the block alive." I took it. It was light, cheap, and ridiculous. I kept it anyway. The system pulsed once, compounding while it updated. Public district protection logged. Vivienne looked at the token in my palm. Vivienne said, "You bought a district and got paid in chicken money?" I said, "Diversified portfolio." Laura laughed. Sky stopped laughing first. She had frozen a frame from her stream. The hooded captain's half-hidden face filled her phone. Grainy, sharp enough, and mean enough to matter. Sky said, "Carson, this is the man who signaled the retreat." I looked at the image. His name could wait. He had watched me buy Old Railyard District and sent men before the friars cooled. That was enough. Sky's clip went live before the last reset bill hit the alley floor. Sky's clip did 2 things before midnight. It made me look like a lunatic who bought a district with chicken tokens. It also put the hooded captain's jaw on every phone in Old Railyard District. By morning, vendors were wearing gold fry tokens on lanyards. Friar's Corner had a line around the arch. Gretchen Pry was nowhere near the leases she used to threaten people with. That was the sweet part. The sour part found me outside the district first. A man in a charcoal suit crossed toward Friar's Corner and smiled at me like he had practiced in a rental mirror. The man said, Mr. Weil, Northlake asked me to confirm whether your dinner appointment moved. Sky Latham, who had slept 3 hours and still looked ready to ruin someone's brand, lifted her phone. Say Northlake again, Sky said. The man looked at the camera, forgot his fake manners and walked straight into a crate of breakfast rolls. Then Margot Ellis called from the real Northlake Trust. Margot said, Mr. Weil, 2 fake investors asked for your old Railyard District appointment files using internal phrasing. I watched the man limp away with powdered sugar on one shoe. I said, internal phrasing? Margot said, a jealous staffer leaked that you were meeting me today. They wanted your property schedule and your locked dollar activity. Nice. I bought 1 block, and suddenly strangers wanted my calendar. Fame had roaches. Sky leaned closer to my phone. Sky said, tell Margot I can make jealous staff famous. Margot heard her and went quiet. Please do not, Margot said. Sky mouthed, boring. I asked Margot, can you lock the leak without making it a meeting? Margot said, already done. I am warning you because the fake investors asked about dinner venues next. Sky's eyes lit up. That was a dangerous expression on a woman with millions of followers and no fear of host stands. Sky said, then we go to dinner. I said, that sounds like bait. Sky grinned. You say that like bait is not food with ambition. 2 hours later, a floor host at an overpriced waterfront restaurant looked at my jacket and decided poverty had entered through the wrong door. He held his tablet against his chest. The host said, our private rooms are reserved for sponsors and verified guests. Sky stood beside me in a silver jacket, one hand already near her phone. Sky said, he is my sponsor. The host looked me up and down. That is unlikely, the host said. I liked him immediately. A clean insult saved time. I placed the obsidian black card on the host stand. The host's tablet chirped, then it chirped again, quieter and more afraid. His shoulders sank. Sky whispered, that tablet just saw God and asked for a tip. The host bowed so hard his hair moved. Mr. Weil, the host said, we have a private room available. I said, you found one between my shoes and your shame? Sky coughed into her hand. The host took the hit and led us inside. Before we reached the private room, a server hurried out of a side hall with his face pulled tight. The server said, Mr. Weil, 2 gentlemen asked if your Northlake appointment moved here. The host's eyes widened. I did not tell anyone. Sky lifted her phone halfway. That sounded defensive before anyone accused you. The host pointed at the server. He handles guest messages. The server turned pale. A Northlake staffer called. She said Mr. Weil expected them. Marco had warned me about one jealous staffer. The leak was already walking into dinner with polished shoes. 2 men in quiet suits appeared near the bar. They were too neat for regular guests and too stiff for honest investors. One saw Sky's raised phone and touched his earpiece. Scam bell chimed once. I said, invite them over. The server waved. The men stopped. Sky went live for 3 seconds, long enough for her followers to see their faces and the caption, fake investors found dinner. Both men turned around. One bumped into a chair. The other walked straight into the dessert cart and apologized to a cheesecake. The host stared at the retreat like his spine had been rented. I told him, private room, now. Anyone asking for my schedule gets seated at Sky's table first. Sky said, with lighting. The host bowed again, deeper this time. Fear improved service beautifully. The room had glass walls, a view of Port Meridian's pier lights, and enough polished forks to threaten a small village. Sky sat facing the restaurant floor because streamers like exits, mirrors, and evidence. I sat with my back to the wall. Scam bell gave one tiny chime. I looked at the nearest aisle. A woman in a green dress was watching Sky's ring. Her companion stood near the bar with a phone held too low and ready. Sky noticed my eyes. Scam? She asked. Probably, I said. She smiled. Do we dodge? No, I said. We let them tell us the price. The woman in green stumbled beside my chair exactly 30 seconds later, her glass tipped with theatrical accuracy. Red soda splashed across her dress, not mine. She screamed anyway. You grabbed me, she shouted. The restaurant turned. The companion at the bar started recording. The host went pale. He looked at me, then at Sky, then at the woman. His career tried to crawl under the table. The woman pointed at me. He touched me when I walked by. Rich men think they can do anything. Sky said, Rich? I thought he looked unlikely. The host flinched. Good memory. Petty woman. I stayed seated. The woman in green raised her voice. Apologize, pay for the dress, and maybe I do not post this. Sky tapped her phone once. Her flash deck live opened with the caption, Same scam, better lighting. The chat moved so fast it looked like rain. Sky said, My followers have been sending me scam venues since Old Railyard District. Let us see if anyone recognizes the dress. The woman's expression twitched. The companion lowered his phone. Sky read from the screen. Green dress, fake spill, bar partner, 3 waterfront hits this week. The host turned on the woman so fast I heard his shoes squeak. The host said, "You have done this here before?" The woman said, "They are lying." Said, "Then stay for the live audience." She looked at the phones now pointed at her from 3 nearby tables. The scam died right there. Public memory bit harder than any camera review. The companion slipped toward the exit. Sky pointed at him. "Bar partner is leaving." A waiter stepped into his path with a dessert tray held like a shield. The companion turned, saw the live comments, and folded. He said, "She told me to record." The woman slapped his arm. "Idiot!" The host's face reddened. He bowed to me again. "Mr. Weil, I apologize, they are banned." I looked at the host. "From the restaurant?" Sky lifted her phone. The host swallowed. "From every venue we manage." There it was, human consequence, faster than paperwork and much more fun. A loud laugh broke from the next private room. A man in a velvet jacket leaned through the divider with a woman on his arm and a diamond watch bright enough to annoy the ceiling. The host stiffened. The woman with him looked bored already. The man said, "Sky Latham, I knew dinner would improve when your charity case arrived." The host whispered, "Otis Null." That told me enough. Otis had money, volume, and the room's tolerance, a dangerous combination in weak lighting. Otis pointed at me. "Weil," Otis said, "I saw your Chicken Alley circus. I will pay for dinner if Sky joins my table and stops filming peasants." Sky smiled like a blade. I said, "Everything." Otis opened his arms. "Everything. I am not counting soda bubbles like airport people." His date sighed. She had heard this song before and hated the chorus. I looked at Sky. "Order soda," I said. Otis laughed. "He wants soda." Adorable. Sky lifted one finger to the host. "Diamond soda service," Sky said. "Full tower. Private room presentation. Put it on Mr. Null's promise." The host went white for the 3rd time in one dinner. Otis stopped smiling. "What is diamond soda?" Otis asked. Sky leaned back. "Bubbles for people who say everything." The staff rolled in a glass tower with 6 silver bottles, crushed ice, and a stupid little diamond stirrer locked inside a clear case. The whole restaurant turned to watch because rich people loved watching other rich people discover math. Otis stared at the tower. His date stood. Otis grabbed her wrist lightly. "Sit down." She pulled free. Otis's date said, "I told you the bragging would get you billed." Then she left. The room made the soft, satisfied noise people make when a man loses romance and liquidity in the same minute. Otis looked at me. I raised my glass of diamond soda. It tasted like regular soda that had robbed the jewelry store. "Refreshing," I said. Otis's bill arrived on a black tray. He read it and sat down without choosing to. The host placed a small velvet pen beside the tray. Otis stared at it. "I need a manager." The host smiled with revenge he had earned the hard way. "You have 3. They are behind you." 3 managers stood near the glass wall, all pretending this was normal fine dining. One held a payment tablet, one held the bottle case. The 3rd held nothing, which made him the scariest. A table near the window started filming. Otis whispered, "Can I dispute bubbles?" Sky said, "You can apologize to carbon dioxide." The window table laughed. Otis signed the tray with the slow hand of a man donating an organ. The diamond tower moved from our table to his, so every guest could see who owned the mistake. That was important. A private bill teaches nothing. A public bill creates religion. Sky showed him the frozen frame from Old Rail Yard District. The hooded captain's jaw filled her screen. Sky said, "Pay the bill or help us name him. Those are your 2 heroic paths." Otis stared at the image. His clown face changed. For 1 second, the velvet jacket stopped being funny. Otis said, "That is Bram Kovic." The name landed in my head like a dropped wrench. I asked, "Who is Bram Kovic?" Otis looked around before answering. "Paid pressure captain, moves rich boys' messes, security, party logistics, intimidation. He runs crews for hire people and knows doors." Sky lowered her voice. "Whose doors?" Otis shook his head. "I like breathing." I took $1 locked dollar from my wallet and placed it beside the bill. Otis stared at it like I had set down a loaded gun. I said, "Names buy soda, silence buys dishes, choose your career." Otis swallowed. He was cooked. At least he knew which oven. Otis said, "I do not know who hired him for Old Rail Yard District. I know he has been renting Event Muscle near East Harbor. Student parties, private elevators, birthday setups. He hates cameras." Sky smiled. "Then he must love me." Otis looked ill. The host returned with the card reader. Otis whispered, "While if I tell you more, I need protection from people who do not wear velvet." I looked at his jacket. "That is everyone," I said. Otis nodded sadly. "Exactly." Slid the locked dollar closer. "Start with where Bram drinks," I said. Otis gave me 2 venue descriptions, no employer and enough fear to be useful. His courage came itemized on the bill. Sometimes that worked. Margot texted during his 2nd description. Margot Ellis. The fake investors stopped asking about dinner. They asked about East Harbor University next. My hand tightened around the glass. Sky saw my face and ended her live without a joke. Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed East Harbor University. I answered before the second ring. A woman's voice came through tight and controlled. "Mr. Weil, this is Erin Clove, principal at East Harbor University," she said. "Your sister Hallie is safe, but her dorm room has been trashed." Behind Erin's voice, someone shouted that Hallie had started it. Then Hallie yelled, "Clear as a bell, tell them I finished it." I stood. Otis lifted one finger. "Do I still have to pay the soda?" Looked at him. "Yes," I said. Sky grabbed her phone and grinned. Otis whispered, "I miss being a nuisance." The diamond soda tower sparkled behind him like a monument to bad decisions. I left him with the bill and drove toward East Harbor. East Harbor University tried to make Hallie apologize before I saw the room. That was the first sign the room was worse than the apology. Erin Clove, the East Harbor principal who had called me, waited in the dorm lounge with a clipboard she gripped too hard. 3 students sat beside her with ice packs, dramatic sniffing, and the smug pain of people who expected payment. Hallie stood across from them in wet boots, one sleeve soaked, and a wrench sticking from her back pocket. Lara Fenwick stood beside her with a towel over her shoulder. That was new. I looked at the ceiling drip behind Lara. Hallie said, "Before you ask, I fixed the sink," Lara said. "She flooded my room while fixing the sink." Hallie shrugged. "The sink no longer leaks." Lara looked at the puddle under her shoe. "It relocated," Lara said. I nodded. "Progress has victims." Lara pointed toward the hall. "Chase's girls shoved towels into my sink because Hallie was helping me carry notes," Lara said. Hallie pulled the towels out with the wrench. "The pipe objected." Hallie said, "The pipe was dramatic." One of the students with an ice pack muttered, "She hit the wall with it." Hallie looked at her. "Because your friend hid my shoes in the wall panel." Erin's clipboard dipped. Every new detail made the apology script look cheaper. Erin cleared her throat. "Mr. Weil," Erin said, "Hallie has been accused of attacking other students and damaging shared housing." Hallie pointed at the 3 ice packs. "They jumped me," Hallie said. "One grabbed my hair, one tried to zip tie my duffel, one called Cedar Row a dead man's house because Chase paid them to say it." The middle student snapped. "Liar!" Hallie smiled. The student leaned away. "Good, that one had already learned range," Erin said. "Hallie, language like that is exactly why I need a clean apology." I looked at the trash doorway behind them. Hallie's clothes were on the floor. Her textbooks had been dumped into a trash bag. A gold fry token sat on her desk, bent where someone had tried to break it. My mood went cold. I picked up the token. "Who touched this?" I asked. The 3 students looked at one another. "Too fast." I opened the duffel I had brought from the car. Inside were 3 designer handbags, 3 reset-priced phones, and 3 glossy apology boxes Hallie had never asked for. The students stopped sniffing. Erin blinked. "Mr. Weil, gifts may complicate this." "Good," I said. The left student whispered, "Are those for us?" I smiled. "For whoever tells the truth first." Hallie looked at me like I had brought snacks to a knife fight. She approved. The middle student clutched her ice pack. "Chase said we would get better gifts if we made Hallie look violent." The right student slapped her arm. "Shut up." Too late. The lounge went silent. Then Lara turned slowly toward the 3 of them. Lara said, "Chase Fenwick paid you to trash Hallie's room?" The left student pointed at the phones. "He said she embarrassed him at the airport and needed to learn campus rules." Hallie stepped closer. The 3 students flinched together. I said, "Show Erin the messages." The middle student pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. Erin's face changed when she read the screen. Erin's face did the ruling before her clipboard could pretend to matter. Erin lowered the phone. "Hallie," Erin said, "I owe you an apology." Hallie crossed her arms. "Start louder." I loved my sister. The left student reached toward a handbag. I zipped the duffel shut. She gasped. "You said truth first." "I said for whoever tells the truth first," I said. "I never said you were keeping prizes for confessing to paid bullying." The student's face collapsed. The right student said, "That is unfair." Hallie pointed at the bent token. "So was losing to breakfast and still taking the job." Lara snatched the phone from Erin's hand and called Chase. He answered on speaker with music and engine noise behind him. Chase said, "Lara, if this is about the dorm, tell your little lab friend to stop collecting strays." Lara's eyes narrowed. "Chase," Lara said, "you paid students to trash Hallie Weil's room." Chase laughed. "I paid them to prove she is unstable. Looks like she proved it herself." Hallie stepped closer to the phone. "I proved 3 of your girls cannot fight," Hallie said. "You still owe me an apology." Chase's voice sharpened. "Tell your brother to come to North Pier Circuit. If he wants an apology, he can earn it where people with real cars settle things." I took the phone from Lara. "What are the terms?" I asked. Chase paused. Then he laughed. 1 lap, Chase said. You win, I apologize. I win. Hallie signs a behavior statement and stays away from my circle. I looked at Hallie. She said, make him kneel. I told Chase, helmet cam, live into the dorm lounge. You lose, you kneel and apologize to Hallie by name. Chase said, bring whatever scrap car you can borrow. I said, done. He hung up. Laura stared at me. You do have a car? She asked. I said, better. I used to deliver food downtown in rain. Hallie grinned. Aaron looked worried. Mr. Weil, I cannot approve a race. I did not ask you to approve it, I said. Keep the lounge feet open. Aaron looked at the trashed room, the confessed bullies, and Hallie's bent token. Then she nodded once. That was all I needed from authority. A door held open after we had already made the turn. North Pier Circuit looked expensive enough to smell least. Sports cars lined the pit lane under bright lights. Students crowded the rail. Chase Fenwick stood beside a silver car with 2 cameras on the hood and the expression of a man who had confused horsepower with personality. Beside him stood a calm man in a cream coat. A track host at the rail whispered, Mr. Pell is here, and the staff gave him too much space. Chase called him Soren. That gave me Soren Pell. Old money pressure from Lara Zorvet, nothing more. His smile was too quiet for the circus around him. Chase saw me arrive and spread his arms. Where is the scrap car? Chase called. A lime green luxury car rolled into the pit lane, ugly enough to be a cry for help. Otis Nall leaned out the window wearing sunglasses at night. Otis shouted, I brought style. Sky, filming from the passenger seat, said, he brought evidence against style. The crowd thought the ugly car was mine. Chase laughed. That thing is your champion? I walked to Otis's trunk and pulled out a folding delivery bike. The laughter died in layers. Then it came back louder. Chase bent over, holding his stomach. You are racing me on a child's bike? Chase asked. I unfolded the frame, locked the bar, and checked the brake line. Delivery bike? I said. It has fed better people than you, Otis whispered. For the record, my car feels insulted. Good, I said. It should improve. The race marshal looked at Chase, then at me, then at Soren. Soren said, let him choose humiliation. That was the first thing I heard Soren Pell say. Smooth voice. Rotten timing. Lara arrived beside Hallie near the rail. Her face was tight. Lara said, Chase, stop this. Chase snapped, stay out of it. Lara lifted her phone. Then I call the Fenwick family office. Chase flinched. There it was. Allowance. The invisible leash on the loud dog. I strapped on the helmet cam. Sky synced the feed to Aaron's dorm lounge screen. Hallie's trashed room bullies appeared in a corner of the stream, watching with their ice packs and no gifts. Chase's friends had already set up a split screen for the dorm lounge. One side showed the track. The other showed Hallie's trash doorway with Aaron standing guard. They thought it made Hallie look cornered. They forgot corners were where Wiles got mean. The rule was simple. 1 lap, marked lanes open, loser apologized live, no second take. Chase rolled to the starting line. I pedaled up beside him. A student near the rail yelled, Did that thing have an engine? I said, legs and spite. The light dropped. Chase's car launched like money had panic. My bike rolled 2 yards and looked terrible. For 5 seconds the whole circuit laughed. I let them. Then the first hairpin came. Chase braked late because the clit mattered to him more than the racing line. His rear tires jumped. His car drifted wide toward the outside barrier. Measure I drew the service lane under the inside rail. Delivery riders used those lanes during events. Cars could not fit. Bikes could. Chase had asked for marked lanes open. He had forgotten rich boys never look at service doors. I cut inside. The bike shot through the narrow lane. My shoulder missed the rail by 2 inches. Triple grip locked my hand around the bar when the pavement kicked up. The helmet cam feed tilted, snapped straight, and caught Chase's silver car sliding wide behind me. The dorm lounge exploded through Sky's speaker. Hallie yelled from the rail, Pedal, old man. I said, I am 26, she yelled. Pedal emotionally. I pedaled emotionally. Chase caught up on the straight, engine screaming. He swerved close enough to scare the crowd and stupid enough to prove he had learned nothing. I moved first. There was a maintenance ramp ahead, painted yellow, narrow, and ugly. Every food courier in Port Meridian knew ramps like that. Every sports car owner saw decoration. I hit it. The bike hopped over the curb, landed on the inner strip, and carried my speed into the last turn. Chase tried to follow. His front bumper kissed the curb. The car stopped with a crunch so clean the crowd made one perfect sound. Sky whispered into the feed. Breakfast boy has become curb boy. Chase slammed his steering wheel. I crossed the line on the delivery bike. The ugliest win on the prettiest track rolled across the finish line. Otis leaned on his lime green car and wiped a fake tear. My terrible car believed in you, Otis said. Your car believed Chase could embarrass himself harder, I said. The helmet cam stayed live. I rode back to Chase and pointed at the ground. Knees, I said. Chase climbed out of his car with a face red enough to violate track lighting. He looked at Soren. Soren left him kneeling. That was important. Chase noticed it too. Chase dropped to one knee. Hallie shouted from the rail, "Both knees! I had 3 bullies and a sink!" Chase closed his eyes. Then he dropped the second knee. The dorm lounge feed showed Erin, Lara's wet towel, 3 terrified bullies, and Hallie's bent gold token on the table. Chase said, "Hallie Weil, I apologize for paying students to trash your room and lie about you." Hallie cupped her hand around her mouth. "Louder!" Chase's jaw shook. He shouted, "I apologize to Hallie Weil." The lounge erupted. The 3 bullies looked like they wanted to crawl inside their ice packs. Lara walked onto the track and slapped Chase once, clean and sisterly. Then she held up her phone. Lara said, "If you touch Hallie again, I freeze your allowance before dinner." Chase stared at her. "You would not," Chase said. Lara tapped once. Chase's phone buzzed. His face answered for her. He was cooked, kneeling, and suddenly cashless. "A tragic little buffet!" The crowd laughed, then recalculated. Before that lap, Chase was the rich student who owned the track mood. After it, he was the brother kneeling on helmet cam while his sister held the allowance knife. I took off the helmet. Hallie ran up and hugged me hard enough to remind my ribs that she was still Weil blood. "Good bike," she said. "Good wrench," I said. Erin appeared on the live feed from the dorm lounge. Erin said, "Mr. Weil, Hallie's housing record will be corrected tonight." Hallie leaned into the camera. "Spell my name right," Hallie said. Erin nodded like a woman who had learned fear with proper formatting. Soren Pell approached the kneeling Chase but looked at me. His voice stayed smooth. His smile made the race feel like a useful test. "Interesting choice, Mr. Weil," Soren said. "You spend strangely," said. "You watch strangely." Lara stepped between him and Chase. Soren's smile stayed put. Sky's camera caught that too. Scam Bell gave one low note. The race was over. Chase was broken for the night. Hallie had her apology. Lara had the allowance leash in her hand. That should have ended the Fenwick problem. At the time, I almost believed it. I thought making Chase kneel ended the Fenwick problem. The birthday party proved he had only been the cheapest invitation. Chase Fenwick was still on both knees when his next lie started breathing. His phone buzzed against the track pavement. Lara Fenwick looked at the screen, and her face went from angry to surgical. Chase grabbed the phone with the same hand he had been pretending could barely move. Hallie saw it first. "Miracle wrist," Hallie said. "Somebody call the church." The crowd laughed. Chase flushed and tucked the phone against his chest. Lara stepped closer. "Why did East Harbor University just alert me that my Fenwick Energy Lab project folder is inside Hallie's room?" That killed the laughter. Chase rose too fast for an injured man, then remembered his act and clutched his shoulder. "Because her brother attacked me and sent her to steal it," Chase said. There it was. He had lost the apology, so he reached for theft and assault. Rich boys hated losing one game. They always tried to change the sport. Erin Clove's face appeared on the dorm lounge feed. The East Harbor University principal looked even paler than before. "Mr. Weil," Erin said, "there is a Fenwick folder in Hallie's damaged notebook stack." Hallie turned toward the screen. "My room has been open since the race." Chase pointed at me. "He planned it. He hurt me, humiliated me, and planted stolen lab property. I want him removed from campus." Soren Pell stood near the pit wall in his cream coat, silent and too comfortable. He said nothing. That bothered me more than Chase yelling. I took off the helmet cam and handed it to Sky Latham. "Keep it live," I said. Sky grinned. "With pleasure." Chase snapped. "You cannot stream a campus investigation." I said, "Good. We are not having one. We are having a thief panic in public." Chase's eyes flicked once toward Soren. Soren only checked his cuff. Useful. Chase was alone and had not accepted it yet. A track host hurried over, panic drunk on procedure. Chase grabbed the host's radio with his supposedly ruined hand. "Tell housing to bag the folder," Chase said. "Keep Hallie away from it. Keep her brother farther." The host glanced at the helmet cam still blinking on Sky's phone. I said, "Start the message with the part where Chase apologized on both knees, then add the miracle wrist." The host hesitated. Chase squeezed the radio so hard the casing creaked. His bad shoulder worked fine when orders looked useful. Hallie pointed. "That shoulder just voted." A few students laughed. Chase snatched his arm back and remembered pain too late. The host lowered the radio. Private staff loved rules until the rules had cameras. Chase said, "You will all regret this." I said, "You keep saying that after losing. It is becoming a ringtone." Then Erin called again, voice tight, saying the folder had already been found. That meant somebody had moved faster than Chase's car. We drove back to East Harbor University with the live feed still rolling. Hallie rode in Lara's car because Lara refused to let Chase touch the story before she did. I followed with Sky, and Otis Knoll trailed behind in his lime green crime against automotive taste. Otis called it a convoy. I called it evidence that money could not buy silence. The dorm lounge looked worse after the race. Water still dripped from Lara's doorway. Hallie's clothes were piled in a trash bag. Her bent gold fry token sat on the table like a tiny, angry witness. In the middle of Hallie's notebook stack sat a sealed folder with Fenwick Energy Lab markings. Chase stood beside it with an ice pack on his shoulder and fresh confidence on his face. Aaron held the folder without opening it. Good, she was learning. Beside the lounge door stood a woman in a black off-duty jacket, wet hair tucked behind one ear, eyes already laughing at me. Juno Paris. She was a Port Meridian officer when she was on the clock. That night she was off-duty, called in because Chase had screamed assault loud enough to scare campus staff. She also happened to be the old crush who once watched me deliver food through storms and still told me my bike looked stolen. Juno mattered because Chase wanted a police-shaped witness. Too bad for him. He got somebody who knew my cheap jacket had history. Juno looked at me and said, Carson Weil, still making rich people point at you? I said, they keep stretching first. Sky lifted her phone a little. Juno looked at the camera. I am off-duty. I am here to keep idiots from pretending volume equals truth. Two housing assistants stood behind Aaron with a plastic evidence sleeve. One reached toward the Fenwick folder like campus plastic outranked live video. Hallie planted one wet boot in front of the table. If that bag touches the folder before Lara does, Hallie said, I am teaching it to swim. The assistant pulled it back. Aaron did not stop her. That was growth, Chase barked. He assaulted me. Juno's eyes dropped to his ice pack. With the delivery bike? Juno asked. Hallie laughed. Chase pointed at the folder. My sister's lab property is in Hallie Weil's room. That is all anyone needs. Lara stepped forward, sharp and controlled. That folder is mine, Lara said. If it is open here, Chase loses more than his allowance. Chase's lips thinned. I looked at the folder, then the notebooks under it. Hallie's notebooks were soaked, swollen, and smeared from the sink flood. The folder sitting under the top book was dry across the seal. Measure I drew a clean line under the plastic edge. It had been shoved in after the wet mess. That was enough, but I wanted Chase to build his own coffin. I asked, Chase, where did Hallie steal it from? He glared. Lara's room. Room number? I asked. Chase snapped. 4B. Hallie raised one hand. That is my room, genius, Lara said. Mine is 4C. The lounge went quiet. Chase blinked. I pointed at the folder's courier sticker. 4C, I said. Printed on the seal. You hid Lara's folder in Hallie's stack and forgot which room belonged to which woman. Sky whispered. He lost to breakfast, bikes, and now doors. Chase lunged toward the folder with his bad arm. I caught his wrist. Triple grip did not need much. One firm hold, and his knees remembered the track. Chase gasped. My arm! Lara lifted her phone. Chase, Lara said. If you are too injured to move, I freeze every family card until a private doctor clears you. Chase's bad hand shot toward his pocket. Everyone saw it. Even Aaron's clipboard gave up pretending. Lara tapped once. Chase's phone buzzed. His face fell. My gas card too? Chase whispered. Lara smiled. Especially the gas card. Chase opened his mouth. Soren said if I kept Lara, he stopped so hard the whole room heard it. Lara's smile vanished. Kept me what? Chase swallowed. Out of trouble, I said. You almost sounded sponsored. He stared at the floor. Good. Another loose thread pulled out in front of everybody. Hallie leaned toward him. Try running on apology power. Chase looked at Soren's name on his lock screen like it might rescue him. Soren had left Chase alone. His silence had more loyalty than he did. Lara took the folder from Aaron's hands. Carson did not plant this, Lara said. Hallie did not steal this. Chase put the wrong bait in the wrong room. Aaron set her clipboard down. Hallie, Aaron said, your room record stays corrected. Chase's complaint is rejected. I said, rejected sounds clean. Say stupid. Aaron looked at Chase, then at the soaked notebooks. Fine, Aaron said. Chase's complaint is stupid. The lounge erupted. Hallie grinned like she had just been handed a scholarship in violence. Chase's face went red. He swung his free hand toward the phone in Sky's grip. Juno stepped between them, off-duty and quicker than his pride. Touch the camera, Juno said, and I stop being bored. Chase stopped. Smart. Late again. The problem was, the lounge had more mess left in it. A student carrying a mop bucket tried to squeeze behind me, tripped on one of Hallie's wet boots, and dumped gray water down my jacket. Hallie stared. Sky gasped. Otis, who had somehow entered with a popcorn bag, whispered, That jacket survived the reset and died to mop soup. Juno laughed and pulled off her black jacket. Here, Juno said. You always did dress like weather owed you money. She threw it around my shoulders before I could refuse. Sky's camera caught the whole thing. A flash deck comment shot up from the corner of her screen. Vivian Ames joined the live. Then another comment appeared. Vivian Ames, interesting jacket. Sky made a tiny choking sound. My phone buzzed immediately. Vivienne had not commented again. She called, worse! I answered because ignoring Vivienne only made her more organized. Vivienne said, "Do you need legal help, a towel, or a chaperone?" Juno leaned toward the phone. "Tell her the towel is handled." Vivienne went silent for one lethal second. Sky covered her mouth with both hands and kept filming because she was a menace with cheekbones. I said, "Mop bucket, old friend, no romance." Vivienne said, "That sentence got worse each time it breathed." Then she hung up. Hallie looked at me like I had personally scheduled my own funeral. Side chaos, delivered by laundry. I told Sky, "Turn that off." Sky said, "Too late, the internet owns your shoulders." Juno adjusted the collar just to be evil. "Relax," Juno said. "Old friends can lend jackets." I said, "You know exactly what that sounded like." Juno smiled. "I am off duty, I get hobbies." Lara tucked the project folder under her arm and watched Juno with new interest. Chase tried to stand, his phone buzzed again. He read one line, then shoved the screen against his chest. Lara saw the movement. "Who keeps texting you?" Chase said. "Nobody." I said, "Nobody has excellent timing." He looked toward the door, suddenly desperate to leave the room he had created. That was the problem with traps, sometimes they remembered the builder's address. Hallie whispered, "You collect dangerous women like cursed trading cards." I said, "I am trying to collect peace." Hallie looked around the flooded lounge, the frozen allowance air, the streamer, the off-duty officer, and Otis eating popcorn from nowhere. "Bad hobby," Hallie said. She was right. Aaron moved toward me after Chase slunk into a chair, suddenly small without gasoline money. "Mr. Weil," Aaron said, "I mishandled Hallie's case from the beginning. I am sorry." Hallie crossed her arms. "Spell the apology right too." Aaron nodded. "I will." Then Erin's phone rang. She looked at the screen and killed the call so fast my scam bell rang before the vibration stopped. That sound cut through the room. I looked at her hand. Erin tucked the phone behind the clipboard. "Wrong number," Erin said. Juno's eyes sharpened. I said, "Your phone lied louder than Chase." Erin's face drained. The screen lit again before she could answer. I saw the label for half a second. "Private lender." A message followed under it. "Last chance, Erin. Photos go public by noon." Erin closed her eyes. Hallie's victory was still warm. Lara had her folder back. Chase's allowance was bleeding out in his pocket. Then Erin Clove, the principal who had just apologized to my sister, stood in front of us with blackmail shaking in her hand. Scam bell rang again. This time, it sounded hungry. Scam bell kept ringing while Erin Clove tried to hide the private lender's name behind a clipboard. That was rude of her. I had just watched Chase Fenwick frame my sister with a stolen folder. My patience was closed for maintenance. "Put him on speaker," I said. Erin shook her head. "Mr. Weil, this is private." Juno Paris leaned against the dorm lounge wall in plain clothes, still off duty, still wearing the expression of a woman enjoying my bad decisions. Juno said, "Private usually means expensive." Hallie pointed at Erin's phone. "He threatened photos. That is not private. That is ugly." Erin swallowed. The phone rang again. She answered on speaker. A man's voice slid through, smooth and oily. The private lender said, "Principal Clove, noon moved up. I saw the stream. You let Carson Weil embarrass a Fenwick. Now my price doubled." Chase, still sulking in a chair, looked up. Lara looked at him. He looked back down. Good. Even rats knew when the bigger trap opened. Erin said, "Please." The private lender laughed. "Please is for people current on shame." Took the phone from Erin. "This is Carson Weil," I said. The line went quiet. Then the private lender said, "The locked dollar groom. I wondered when you would sniff around." I said, "Come to East Harbor University. Bring whatever makes you brave." The private lender said, "You do not order me." Said, "Then keep calling women from a safe distance. Very masculine." Hallie mouthed, "Cooked." The private lender's voice hardened. "Side entrance. 10 minutes." He hung up. Erin grabbed the phone back. "You do not understand. He has pictures. He makes people look ruined before they can explain." Said, "Then we skip explaining." 10 minutes later, the private lender stepped through the side entrance in a tan overcoat with a leather folder under one arm. He looked like a private lender built by a committee of unpaid victims. He saw Juno first. The private lender smiled. "Officer presence, cute." Juno lifted both hands. "Off duty. I am here for the show." The private lender liked that answer. Stupid men loved rooms they thought had no consequences. He placed the folder on Erin's desk and spread 3 photos across it. Erin outside a lender's office. Erin signing a paper. Erin crying in her car. The photos were shame arranged with lighting. The private lender said, "Principal Clove borrowed when East Harbor University's reset funds froze. I offered discretion. She offered delay. Now I want a statement that Carson Weil interfered with campus discipline." Erin's mouth tightened. Hallie stepped forward. I raised one hand. This was Erin's shame. She deserved the first swing. Erin looked at the photos, then at the private lender. "I borrowed to keep students housed after the reset," Erin said. You turned it into a leash. The private lender smiled wider. That sounds noble. Nobility uploads poorly. He lifted his phone. The campus lobby screen behind Erin blinked awake. A preview of Erin crying in her car appeared under the East Harbor announcement banner. The private lender said, "One tap, Principal Clove." I caught his wrist before his thumb landed. Triple grip closed. The private lender's smile shook. I said, "Delete the queue." The private lender hissed, "That is assault." Juno looked at the ceiling. "I am off duty and bored, remember?" Housing clerk near the printer stared at the lobby screen. The clerk said, "He did that to my sister." Cafeteria manager stepped into the doorway and pointed at the folder. The manager said, "He used the same office photo on me." Sky Latham stepped in with her phone lowered at her side. "I love reunion content," Sky said. The private lender's eyes went to her camera. There it was. Fear. Clean and finally useful. I said, "Delete Erin's photos, then unlock the folder. Your audience is waiting." He opened the phone with his thumb. Erin reached for it. The private lender started to pull back. I tightened one finger. He dropped the phone into her hand. Erin deleted the queued post first. The lobby screen went black. Then she deleted the photos. The first one vanished. Then the second. Then the third. The housing clerk and cafeteria manager stepped closer. The private lender looked smaller with every tap. When she finished, Erin set the phone on the desk. "Now leave," Erin said. The private lender snatched the phone and backed toward the door. "This is not over," he said. I said, "It ended when your threat needed witnesses." Hallie opened the door for him with a sweet smile. "Run with both knees," Hallie said. "Chase can teach you." The private lender left fast enough to make the hallway air move. Erin stood behind her desk, still shaken, no longer bent around a phone. That was enough for one morning. The private lender's phone buzzed as he reached the hallway. He looked down and cursed before shoving it into his coat. Scam Bell gave a short, nasty chirp. I caught one phrase on the lock screen before it disappeared, "Showroom pickup." I did not know what it meant yet. I only knew the private lender had another room waiting to be squeezed. Then Vivienne Ames arrived. She wore a charcoal coat, held a Harborline Analytics tablet, and looked at Juno's jacket on my shoulders like it had personally insulted payroll. "Interesting wardrobe expansion," Vivienne said. Sky whispered, "Here we go." Took the jacket off and handed it to Juno. Juno smiled. "He wore it well." Vivienne's eyes narrowed by 1 professional millimeter. I said, "Mop bucket." Vivienne said, "Of course. The old romantic bucket defense." Hallie leaned toward Lara. "This is better than orientation." My phone rang before the jealousy could grow teeth. "Jude Kellen," I answered. Jude said, "Carson, I need help. It is Mina." His voice had that same tight pride from Riverside Medical Center. "Different wall, same collapse." Mina Shore, Jude's girlfriend, worked at a Port Meridian dealership as a test driver and sales assistant. I knew her mostly through Jude's stories, calm hands, fast turns, and a talent for apologizing to cars after other people abused them. Jude said, "They are blaming her for returns. The owner says she scared buyers by telling them the truth about repair holds. They are threatening her commissions and her job." Vivienne lifted her tablet. "Harborline Analytics still needs fleet vehicles for district operations." She looked at Juno's jacket, then at me. "Since apparently we are collecting drivers too," Vivienne said. I said, "We are collecting consequences." The dealership had glass walls, fake plants, and the kind of showroom music used to soften bad contracts. A buyer with a child on his hip stood in front of Mina Shore when we walked in. Mina wore a blue dealership shirt and held a ring of keys with both hands. She was small, tense, and trying very hard not to cry in front of men who wanted the tears. The buyer asked, "Is the repair hold cleared or not?" Mina looked at the child, then at the car. "Not cleared," Mina said. "Do not put your kid in it yet." Jude stood beside her, helpless and furious. 3 favored employees leaned against the counter. They smiled when we entered. One of them pointed at Mina's keys. "She likes drama," the employee said. "Told buyers the truth out loud. Now they are returning inventory." Mina said, "They asked if the holds were cleared." I answered. The dealership owner stepped out of his office with a tie too shiny for his face. The owner said, "Mina forgot who signs paychecks." I said, "Customers sign yours." He looked at my jacket, then at Vivienne's tablet, then at the obsidian black card in my hand. His tone changed halfway through his next breath. "Mr. Weil," the owner said, "there has been confusion." Mina looked down. That annoyed me. I hated when decent people got trained to lower their eyes around discount kings. The owner moved closer. "We can settle this. Harborline Analytics can place a fleet order." Mina apologizes. "Everyone wins," Mina whispered. I did not lie. The owner snapped. "Mina, quiet." Jude stepped forward. I caught his sleeve. "Let him finish cooking himself," I said. The owner smiled at me, thinking I had agreed. He said, "These returns are her fault. I tell customers what they need to hear. She tells them what scares them." The owner kept talking because silence would have saved him. Mina panics buyers, he said. She sees a warning note and acts like honesty is a personality. Mina's grip tightened around the keys. Jude stepped forward again. I held him back again. Let the customers answer, I said. The showroom door opened. A woman walked in and tossed a key fob onto the front desk. I am returning the white sedan, the buyer said. Mina told me the repair hold was active. Your employee told me she was emotional. The owner froze. Another buyer entered behind her and dropped 2 key fobs beside the first. My wife's car too, he said. Mina was right. Then a third buyer came in with a child on his hip and a key held out like a dead mouse. I want the same paperwork you promised did not matter, he said. The favorite employees stopped smiling. One whispered, those were my commissions. Mina looked at the keys, then at me. I shook my head. That was you, I said. You warned them before they got hurt. Her mouth trembled. The owner recovered badly. Everybody calm down, he said. No returns process has been initiated. Vivienne stepped forward. Harborline Analytics fleet order is gone, Vivienne said. Old rail yard vendor transport is gone too. The owner stared at her tablet. Vivienne added, Mina's honesty just saved me from buying rolling lawsuits. The favored employees turned on the owner so fast their hair should have moved. You said the holds were cleared, one said. The owner snapped, because buyers hate hesitation. The showroom heard him. Every buyer looked at him. A teenage employee near the coffee machine took off his dealership lanyard and placed it on the counter. The owner snapped, put that back on. The employee said, you told us to say the hold's cleared. I am not eating that return. A second employee followed him. The key pile had become contagious. The owner had finally said the expensive part out loud. I placed the black card on the front desk beside the returned keys. Mina quits, I said. The owner laughed once. She has a training repayment clause. I smiled. Put it on the counter, I said. Make the clause stand beside the keys and your confession. He looked at the buyers, the employees, Vivienne's tablet, Sky's phone, and Jude's fists. He chose survival. Mina is free to resign, the owner said. Mina pulled off her dealership badge. She placed it on top of the key pile. The buyers clapped first. Then Jude clapped, angry and wet-eyed, like applause was the only thing keeping him from jumping the counter. Mina smiled at him. That smile did more damage to Jude than the whole dealership had. I said, Mina, can you drive under pressure? She wiped her cheek. Better than I can sell lies. Good, I said. You are my driver. Jude choked. You're what? Mina grabbed a courtesy car key from the pile, spun it once, and headed for the door. Test drive, she said. 30 seconds later, she backed the car out of the showroom lane, clipped one balloon arch, missed a glass wall by 3 inches, and stopped perfectly at the curb. Jude made a sound only dogs should hear. Mina rolled down the window. I missed the wall, she said. I looked at Jude. She is hired. Jude pointed at the balloon arch hanging sad and half dead. I said the balloon had bad instincts. My phone rang as I got into the passenger seat. Otis Knoll's name flashed across the screen. I answered. Otis whispered, Carson, Bram Kovic is renting the top floor of the Aurelia Hotel for Laura Fenwick's birthday. Private elevators, event muscle, no public cameras, very tasteful menace. Mina's engine idled. Vivienne leaned toward the open window. Juno and Sky stopped joking. Otis added, and Carson, Bram hates cameras, but he is buying a room with too many windows. The dealership owner was still staring at the returned keys behind us. Good. One room had collapsed. The next one was being rented above the city. Otis Knoll's call made Aurelia Hotel feel like a trap before I ever saw the invitation. Bram Kovic was renting the top floor for Laura Fenwick's birthday. Private elevators, event muscle, no public cameras. That sounded like a witness trap with birthday candles. Laura answered my call on the second ring. I said, did you approve a top-floor birthday at Aurelia Hotel? Laura sighed. Soren Pell insisted the Fenwick donors expected a proper reception. Chase is suddenly too quiet, which means someone smarter took his crayons. She kept her voice light. I heard the tension under it anyway. I said, do not go alone. Laura said, Carson, I do not usually take birthday orders from men who race bicycles indoors. Good, I said. Take this one. Before she could answer, Sky Latham shoved her phone into my face from the back seat. Your ex is live, Sky said, and she is standing in front of Cedar Row. Did not hang up. Laura stayed on speaker while my ex auditioned for a lawsuit. My father's house filled the screen behind Alana Dyer. That made my blood go quiet. Alana wore soft makeup, a pale sweater, and the injured expression she used when she wanted strangers to pay for her personality. Bart Lang stood behind her with sunglasses on, which was bold for a man whose credit had recently been murdered indoors. Rick Dyer stood on the porch steps holding a donation sign like a proud toll booth. Sheila Dyer hovered beside him with tissues and the same mouth that once said dead people did not need houses. They had turned my father's porch into a pity booth. Alana spoke to her flash deck audience like she had been wronged by weather. Alana said, Carson Weil abandoned me after the reset because money changed him. An older neighbor stepped onto the sidewalk across from Cedar Row. She had watched my father fix porch rails, gutters, and one cursed mailbox that never closed right. Value, lock meant nothing to her. She knew who had shoveled her walk when my father was alive. The neighbor called, Alana, you told Sheila this house looked depressing. Why are you crying in front of it now? Alana's eyes flicked sideways. Rick hissed something off camera. Sky's chat scrolled fast. Half the audience came from her page. They were already sharpening knives. Alana touched her stomach. I may be carrying his family, Alana said, and he will not even discuss what I am owed. Mina Shore, now driving my car like she wanted revenge on asphalt, glanced at me. Jude Kellen muttered from the back, Please tell me we are turning around. I said, We are turning around. Mina smiled. The car made a U-turn so clean Jude grabbed the door handle and prayed to the seatbelt. We reached Cedar Row in 11 minutes. Alana saw the car, saw me step out, then made her voice softer for the stream. There he is, Alana said. Carson, I am asking you publicly because privately you threw me away. I looked at Cedar Row behind her. My father had painted that porch railing twice because he hated paying contractors for work he could curse through himself. Alana had stood in front of it once and called it cozy. Then she tried to turn it into wedding meat. That was the only reflection she got from me. I walked into frame. Sky stayed behind my shoulder, live on her own feed with no caption. She did not need one. The internet smelled blood. Vivienne Ames arrived right after us in a rideshare, still carrying her Harborline Analytics tablet like a sword. Juno Paris stepped out behind her, off duty again, jacket back on, eyes scanning the sidewalk instead of Alana's face. Alana noticed both women. Her mouth tightened. Good. Jealousy made greedy people honest. Rick lifted the donation sign higher. I looked at him. Put that down before the porch rejects you. Rick lowered it halfway, then remembered he had viewers. Sheila dabbed her eyes. Carson, we only wanted you to prove family mattered. I said, You told me my dead father did not need a house. Try crying with continuity. Sky's chat started eating. Sheila stopped dabbing. Alana said, So these are the replacements? I said, You brought my ex-lender, your parents, and a donation sign to my father's porch. Do not start counting guests. The neighbor across the street clapped once. Rick lifted the sign again like the clap had offended him. A teenager at the curb filmed Rick filming Alana. Content had started eating itself. Vivienne smiled with office poison. Replacements usually require the first version to have value, Vivienne said. Sky coughed. Vivienne woke up spicy. Alana's eyes flashed. You think this is funny? Alana said. I stood by him when he had nothing. Said, You stood by Bart in a cafe and explained the divorce plan. The chat spiked. Alana's smile trembled. Bart shifted behind her. Alana pointed at me. You misunderstood. I was scared. Then you became rich overnight and started humiliating me. I said, You asked me to sell Cedar Row before breakfast. Alana lifted her chin. A fiancé shares property, she said. I said, Say the property part clearly. Alana hesitated. The chat slowed. People love a villain who understands the cliff and jumps anyway, Sheila whispered. Alana, no. Alana ignored her. If your $10 can buy districts, Alana said, then I deserve half of whatever city you buy next. There it was. She said the greedy part herself. Even Sky stopped moving for half a second. The chat turned so fast it probably left skid marks. She wants the city. Half of what city? Girl said, quiet part on livestream. Cedar Row is not a wedding gift. Alana saw the comments and panicked. I mean, support, Alana said. Emotional support. My phone speaker crackled. Laura said, Carson, tell Aurelia I am not arriving alone. Alana heard another woman and looked even worse. Then Laura ended the call. Hallie was not there, which was lucky. She would have thrown a muffin from memory. I reached into my pocket and took out one reset penny. It was ordinary money. Post-reset, almost nothing. It clicked against my thumbnail. Alana stared at it. I held it out. You kept asking for sincerity, I said. Here is your current value. The chat detonated. Sky whispered, That penny is going to need security. Alana slapped my hand. The penny hit the sidewalk and rolled to Bart's shoe. Bart did not pick it up. Smartest thing he had done all month. Rick stared at the penny like it had ruined his calculator. Sheila whispered, Carson, that is cruel. I said, so was pricing Cedar Row before the coffee cooled. The stream heard her. The comment wave turned from curious to ugly for Alana, Rick, and Sheila. Alana turned on Bart. Say something, she snapped. Bart looked from Sky's live feed to Juno's steady stare to Vivienne's smile. Then he stepped backward. Bart said, I am not involved in this. Alana froze. The stream caught it perfectly, Bart added. Alana, you told me this would pressure him privately. Beautiful. He had abandoned her and confessed her plan in one breath. Sometimes trash took itself out and closed the lid, Alana whispered. Bart lifted both hands. Northlake Trust is already watching me. He walked away from her, past the porch steps, past the rolling penny, past whatever romance they had pretended had funding. Alana stood alone in front of Cedar Row with 2 live streams and no sponsor. The audience ate her alive. Vivienne stepped beside me. Carson, Vivienne said, loud enough for Alana's stream. Harborline Analytics has payroll because you refused people like this. Alana glared at her. Juno moved then. Her eyes were not on Alana. They were on a man across the street in black event clothes, walking too slowly for a delivery and too carefully for a neighbor. He wore a slim badge with the same white slash Otis had described from Bram's event cruise. Juno touched my elbow. Courier, Juno said, Aurelia Hotel style, across the street. The man saw her notice him and turned toward a parked car. He tried to flip the badge inward. That tiny movement told me he knew exactly which crowd he did not want, recognizing him. Juno moved first, cutting across the sidewalk without running. I moved faster because off-duty still meant she cared about rules more than I did. I crossed the street before he could reach it. He tried to slide a cream envelope under the wiper. I caught his wrist. He dropped the envelope. The courier said, Mr. Pell said you would make it public. I looked at him. Then, thank him for planning around me, I said. He pulled free and ran. Juno let him go. She could have chased. She did not. Good. This scene was not getting solved by a badge. She picked up the envelope and turned it over. No mystery label, no cute code, just my name written in thick black ink. Carson Weil. Inside was an invitation to Laura Fenwick's birthday reception at Aurelia Hotel, top floor, tomorrow night, hosted by Soren Pell. A handwritten line sat under the printed card. Bring whatever $10 can buy. Sky read it over my shoulder and whistled. Vivienne's jaw tightened. Juno looked down the street where the courier had vanished. Alana, forgotten for one deadly second, grabbed for the invitation. Is that about the city? She demanded. Sky turned her camera back to Alana. The chat found new life. She is still asking. Penny Girl wants the city invite. Bart left and she upgraded to ballroom hunting. Alana snatched her hand back. Too late. Her greed was trending faster than Chase's muffin apology. Sky showed me the tag. The penny clip had already hit the Port Meridian live board. Alana stared at her own screen as strangers turned her into a joke in real time. Her eyes filled with tears. Maybe some were real. Green could hurt too when it lost an audience. I picked up the reset penny from the sidewalk. I placed it on Cedar Row's porch rail, where my father used to leave spare nails. Alana watched it like it was a door closing. I said, do not come back to this house, she whispered. You will regret humiliating me. Looked at the Aurelia Hotel invitation in my hand. No, I said, but somebody will regret inviting me. Mina pulled the car to the curb and opened the rear door. Jude looked at the invitation and said, please tell me, this birthday has cake and no cars. Mina said, cars are how we leave if the cake attacks. Vivienne stepped toward the car first. I am coming, she said. Laura's folder touched Harborline Analytics risk. Juno stepped beside her. I am coming, Juno said. The courier made it personal when he ran badly. Sky lifted her phone. I am coming because men who ban cameras deserve lighting. Vivienne and Juno looked at each other. The air got expensive. I got into the car before that became a second live stream. Behind us, Alana was still live, still crying, still reading comments that had stopped loving her 2 mistakes ago. Bart was gone. The penny stayed on the porch rail. The invitation sat on my knee. Bram's courier had made the next stage public. Soren had put his name on the card. Laura's birthday had stopped being a party before the first candle. Rick tried one last time from the porch. Carson, Rick said, family matters when the city starts watching. I looked at him, then at the penny on the rail. Then watch from outside, I said. Rick had no answer. Sheila had no tears left, that chat believed. Alana had a live audience and nothing to sell except embarrassment. At the time, I only knew one thing. The next time I saw Aurelia Hotel's ballroom, the question was not who loved Laura, it was who owned the room. The invitation said, Soren Pell hosted Laura Fenwick's birthday. The first text I got outside Aurelia Hotel asked which birthday message I wanted on the drones. That was the kind of contradiction I had learned to respect. Soren had rented the top floor. Bram Kovic had stacked private elevators and event muscle. Laura was walking into a ballroom built to make her look surrounded. The hotel operations desk sent me 2 message drafts anyway. One was Soren's, one was mine. I typed back, wait until he brags. Then I put the phone away before Vivienne Ames saw the screen. Vivienne, Juno Paris, and Sky Latham had argued the whole ride over who had the most professional reason to come. Vivienne claimed Harborline risk. Juno claimed a fleeing courier. Sky claimed lighting. Mina Shore parked at the curb and looked at the hotel doors. Mina said, I can keep the car hot, or I can hit a valet cone and create a distraction. Jude Kellen said from the back seat. Please choose the first one. The lobby solved the choice for us. A floor host blocked the velvet rope with one hand and stared at my shoes. The host said, top floor guests require formal attire, no live recording, and no outside vendors. Sky lifted her phone. He opened with all my love languages banned. Vivienne smiled at the host. Try again with less career damage. The host stiffened. Then Hallie Weil stomped through the revolving door wearing work boots, a black dress, and a Goldfry token on a chain. Behind her came 6 old rail yard vendors in clean aprons, carrying covered trays from Friar's Corner and every stall Gretchen Pry used to threaten. The host looked like the dress code had developed a knife. Hallie pointed at her boots. These are formal if the floor needs fixing, I said. She has references. Last sink survived emotionally. Lara Fenwick appeared at the top of the lobby stairs before the host recovered. She wore a blue dress, no smile, and the same sharp eyes she had used on the hospital scammers. Her gaze moved from the vendors to Hallie. Lara said, you brought real food. Hallie held up a tray. Your birthday, your digestive rights. The host reached for his earpiece. A hand closed over his wrist. Bram Kobik stepped out from the elevator bank in a black suit with no badge, no smile, and the calm of a man who thought the hotel was rented territory. Bram said, no boots, no cameras, no street food. Mr. Pell's instructions. Sky whispered, Bram hates joy. Confirmed. Bram ignored her and looked at me. Mr. Weil, Bram said, your invitation is for one. You can attend quietly or leave loudly. I looked past him at the elevator staff. The young elevator attendant had one finger hovering over the top floor button. She looked terrified enough to make me patient for 3 seconds. I asked Bram, do you own the elevator too? Bram said, tonight I control access. The lobby heard him. Good. Margot Ellis walked in behind us carrying a slim black file against her coat. Northlake Trust had given her polite shoes and dangerous timing. Margot said, Mr. Weil's party is cleared. Bram's eyes went to the file. The host's spine bent toward Margot by instinct. Bank fear had entered hotel fear. Beautiful crossover episode. Bram stepped in front of Margot. Northlake has no authority over my event, Margot said. Then stop blocking my client. Bram looked at the elevator attendant. If they go upstairs, Bram said, you will be unemployed by morning. The attendant's face drained. There was the overreach. Soren rented the top floor. Bram threatened the staff. The hotel had a choice now, and choices made in front of witnesses turned into consequences. I set the obsidian black card on the elevator console. Press the button, I told the attendant. Let Bram explain payroll to the person who signs it. Bram's jaw tightened. The attendant pressed the top floor button. The doors opened. Hallie stepped in first with her boots and a tray of chicken like a holy object. Bram leaned close to me before the doors shut. You are walking into a room built for you to lose, Bram said. I said, then why are you guarding the door like I already found the exit? The doors closed on his face. Sky whispered, that line needs merchandise. The top floor ballroom glowed gold and white above Port Meridian. Donors lined the windows. Students from East Harbor University clustered near the dessert tables. Fenwick family office people stood too straight near Laura's father, who watched Soren with a tired face and a sealed mouth. Chase Fenwick stood near a pillar with no fuel cards, no friends worth naming, and a flower box in his hands. When he saw Hallie, he flinched. Hallie held up the Goldfry token. Chase lowered the flower box. Smart boy. Pain had finally become curriculum. Then Soren glanced at him. Chase swallowed and walked toward Laura with the flower box held in both hands. The box was white, silk-lined, and too expensive for an apology that had been rented. Chase said, Laura, I wanted to make tonight easier. Hallie leaned over the flowers. Does it contain a refund for my room? Chase's ears went red. Laura looked at the flowers, then at Soren. Did you want to make it easier? Laura asked. Or did Soren tell you to look useful after the bike race? Chase stared at the box. That was an answer with petals. Hallie took one flower, stuck it behind her Goldfry token, and handed the box back. Partial credit, Hallie said, still broken character. The nearest student laughed. Chase retreated to the pillar with one flower missing and no dignity recovered. Soren Pell stood at the center of the room, polished in a pale suit. He smiled at Laura like the evening had already been counted. Laura, Soren said, loud enough for every donor, you deserve a birthday protected from circus acts. His eyes touched me. Hallie's boots, the vendors, Sky's phone, and Vivienne's tablet. He thought that was an insult. The vendors heard it as a challenge. The Friar's Corner owner lifted his tray higher. Laura walked down the steps toward Soren. I asked for a simple birthday, Laura said. You rented altitude. Soren smiled wider. People at your level should be seen properly. A server came through with wristbands for the donor terrace. White bands went to family office guests. Gray bands went to staff. The server hesitated in front of the old rail yard vendors. Bram snapped his fingers. Gray. The Friar's Corner owner looked at the gray bands like he had been handed a muzzle. Hallie grabbed one, wrapped it around her work boot, and slapped her gold fry token over it. There, Hallie said. Formal livestock. The vendors copied her. Gray bands became boot bands, tray bands, and one very ugly bracelet on Sky's phone rig. Soren saw the status marker turn into a joke before the first toast. I almost respected the confidence. Almost. Then he kept talking. Soren turned to the room and raised a glass. Tonight, Soren said, we remind Port Meridian that Fenwick Energy Lab belongs with stable partners, serious backers, and people who know how to handle value. Laura's father looked down. Laura kept her eyes on Soren. Soren gestured to the window. Outside, drones rose over the harbor in silver lines. The room drifted toward the glass. Phones lifted. Even Chase forgot to look miserable. The drones formed Laura's name first. Then a second line built beneath it. Laura Fenwick, choose the future with Soren Pell. A few donors clapped politely. Soren turned toward Laura and lowered his voice just enough to sound intimate while still being public. You do not have to keep standing with people who turn every room into a fight, Soren said. Laura looked at the drones. Then she looked at Hallie, at the vendors, at me. Soren had given her a stage. Poor man, he forgot she had a mouth. Laura said, I like people who fight when someone rigs the room. The polite clapping died. Bram came out of the service corridor and moved toward a hotel technician holding a tablet. Cut the alternate feed, Bram snapped. Now! The technician hesitated. Bram grabbed his shoulder hard enough to make the tablet shake. That was the second overreach. I lifted my phone and tapped send. Outside the window, Soren's message broke apart. The drones scattered, dipped, then rebuilt into a new line. Happy birthday, Laura! A second line formed under it. From Hallie, Old Rail Yard, and everyone who still eats because you noticed us. The ballroom gasped. Then the vendors outside the glass terrace cheered. Gold fry tokens flashed under the drone light. Friar's Corner trays opened. The smell of chicken hit the ballroom like class warfare with seasoning. Hallie waved her token at Laura. Laura blushed once, quick and real, then immediately lifted her chin so Soren could not enjoy it. The drones shifted again. A third line appeared. Your project is yours. Your birthday is yours. Your choice is yours. Laura's father finally looked up. Soren stopped smiling. Bram shoved the technician toward the service wall. Who authorized that? Bram barked. I walked to the center of the room. I did, I said. Bram turned on the nearest hotel director, a woman with a silver nameplate and fear in her eyes. Remove him, Bram said. I paid for this floor. The director looked at him. Then she looked at Margot's black file. Margot opened it on a cocktail table and slid one page forward with my name on it, Aurelia Group above it, and enough stamped authority to make every hotel manager in the room remember rent. The hotel director took one breath. Then she faced the ballroom. Aurelia Group recognizes Carson Weil as controlling CEO, the director said. Mr. Kobik's event access is revoked. The room buckled. Sky actually lowered her phone. Vivienne whispered, Carson! Juna laughed under her breath. Of course. Bram stared at the director like she had stabbed him with the carpet. You cannot revoke me, Bram said. The director stepped aside. Hotel security stepped behind her. Private event muscle looked at hotel security, then at Bram, then at me. Paychecks were choosing sides in real time. The elevator attendant from downstairs stepped out behind the hotel director. Her hands still shook, but she looked at Bram now instead of the carpet. The technician lifted his tablet again and put the alternate feed back on the main system. Tiny courage. Very expensive for Bram. The hotel director removed her white donor wristband, dropped it on a tray, and took one gold fry token from Hallie. The gesture traveled faster than an order. 2 servers did the same. Then a banquet captain clipped a token to his lapel and wheeled Soren's untouched sponsor cake away from the center table. Soren saw his own staff decoration turn into my vendor badge. His jaw moved once. I said, Bram, you threatened my elevator attendant in my hotel. You grabbed my technician during my birthday message. You rented my floor to humiliate my guest. Bram's fists closed. I added, leave through the service elevator you liked so much. The vendors erupted. Hallie yelled, Boots win! Chase stared at the floor like he wanted to crawl under his flower box. Laura turned to Soren. Every phone in the ballroom aimed at them. Soren's face had gone still, which made him more dangerous. He looked best when insulted. That meant he practiced. Laura said, I do not belong with you. Fenwick Energy Lab does not belong with you. My birthday definitely does not belong with you. The room took that hit before Soren could block it. Laura's father exhaled like he had held his breath for weeks. Chase whispered, Laura! Laura cut him off. You can start repairing yourself by staying quiet. Chase stayed quiet. Growth. Tiny, pathetic growth, but still growth. Bram was escorted toward the service corridor. His crew followed in pieces. One man pretended to check his phone. Another stopped wearing his earpiece halfway to the door. The floor host from the lobby appeared with a tray of recovered gray wristbands. He looked at Hallie's boots, then at me. "Mr. Weil," the host said, "should these remain active?" Hallie answered before I did. "Only if they apologize to the boots." The host nodded like that had been a reasonable executive instruction and carried the tray away. The ballroom laughed. Soren watched them leave. Then he set his glass on a tray. He kept his voice smooth. That worried me more. Then he clapped once. "Impressive," Soren said. "You bought a room." The ballroom fell quiet. He turned toward the donors, then back to me. "At dawn," Soren said, "Port Meridian Holdings goes to private auction. It controls the downtown corridors, garage access, vendor passages, Aurelia service easements, and Fenwick collateral routes." He smiled again. "Bring whatever $10 can buy, Carson. I will bring the city." There it was. Aurelia Hotel had been the room. Port Meridian Holdings was the street under the room. The drones outside still spelled Lara's freedom, while Soren handed me the next leash he thought I could not break. I picked up one Goldfry token from Hallie's tray and slid it into my pocket. Then I looked at Soren. "Dawn is early," I said. "Wear something comfortable for losing." His smile twitched. For the first time all night, Soren Pell looked less polished. The room saw it. Even the donors saw it. The Dawn auction room had billion-dollar faces and an opening bid cheaper than airport coffee. That was the reset at its funniest. Soren Pell stood at the front of the Aurelia Hotel conference floor like he had slept inside a pressed suit. Behind him, a private auction screen showed Port Meridian Holdings in clean white letters. The package looked boring on purpose. Then Soren touched one square on the access map. My phone buzzed. "Friar's Corner, loading gate just went red." Soren smiled without looking at the message. "Preview mode," Soren said. "By noon, that becomes policy." That was the consequence. Old Railyard could be choked by one screen. Aurelia Hotel could lose its service throat. Fenwick Energy Lab could be squeezed through delivery routes, event access, and collateral pressure. Every rescue I had paid for became a hostage with nicer formatting, so I brought one old $10 bill. Hallie brought the auction paddle because she said my hands attracted lawsuits. Mina Shore stayed downstairs with the car. Jude Kellen stayed with her because love made him brave and terrified in equal amounts. Sky Latham waited near the back wall with her phone down, which was how she threatened people now. Vivienne Ames carried Harborline's tablet. Margot Ellis carried the black file. Lara Fenwick walked beside her father, who had finally stopped looking through Soren and started looking at his daughter. Juno Paris leaned near the exit, off-duty and openly entertained. Then the old trash arrived. Bart Lang came in first, sunglasses gone, confidence wounded, credit still limping. Gretchen Pry followed with a scarf hiding the neck where her Goldfry token lanyard used to be. Dirk Elson stood behind a chair and kept his wrist close to his ribs. The private lender from East Harbor University hovered near the coffee service, pretending nobody had watched him run. Soren had stacked my leftovers like trophies. Cute. Alana Dyer tried to enter behind them with Rick and Sheila, but the hotel director stopped her at the conference doors. Alana pointed at me. "I am connected to this purchase." The director looked at the reset penny Alana still held like a cursed charm. "You are connected to the lobby," the director said. The doors closed. Sky whispered, "Alana denied at dawn. Strong start." Soren did not look back. He only smiled at me. "Mr. Weil," Soren said, "you collect injured people. I collect structures." I said, "Your structures keep hiring injured people to embarrass you." Bart's jaw clenched. Gretchen glared at the table. Dirk stared at the auction screen like maybe it would hire him. Soren slid a thin folder toward my chair. "Before the host begins," Soren said, "I am offering settlement. Keep the hotel for 1 season. Keep your chicken blot for 30 days. Let Fenwick Energy Lab accept outside oversight. Walk out with applause." Hallie leaned over the folder without touching it. "He is trying to sell you your own wallet," Hallie said. Vivienne added, "and charging handling fees." Soren's eyes cooled. "Adults are speaking." Hallie lifted the paddle. "Then stop whining like a brochure." A donor coughed into his fist. The private lender smiled, then remembered cameras existed and killed it. I pushed the settlement folder back with one finger. "You lost the birthday room," I said. "Now you are asking me to rent my courage from you." Soren left the folder where it sat. That was fine. Dead offers made good table decor. The private auction host, a stiff man with a reset-priced watch, cleared his throat. The host said, "This is a closed transfer of controlling interest in Port Meridian Holdings. Bids clear at reset tender value unless locked dollar tender is verified at old value." Half the room looked bored. I loved that. Bored people were easier to shock. Soren lifted a paddle. "I open with the full reset reserve," Soren said. The screen accepted it. A soft chime sounded. Donors murmured. Bart relaxed. Gretchen smiled at last. Dirk looked at me like payroll revenge had found a suit. Soren said, when this clears, old Railyard's informal rent freeze ends first. Then Aurelia's new management learns how service easements work. Then Fenwick Energy Lab gets safe oversight. Gretchen touched her scarf and smiled like she could already feel vendors kneeling again. Bart whispered, and Northlake? Soren did not look at him. Your access improves when my package clears. Bart sat straighter. Poor man, he was buying the next leash. Dirk lifted his chin. Harborline will need transition advisors. Vivienne looked at him over her tablet. Dirk, your last transition was from employed to escorted. The room laughed before it could stop itself. Dirk's hand went to his wrist. The private lender raised his phone with Aaron Clove's contact visible on the screen. Juno Paris stared at him from the exit. The phone went face down. Smart. Fear had learned to read the room. Laura's father stiffened. Laura reached for his hand before he could speak. Soren noticed and smiled at her. Laura, Soren said, you can avoid a lot of public discomfort by accepting serious protection. Laura said, you keep calling cages protection. Try a new hobby. Hallie raised the auction paddle like she wanted to swat him. The host pointed at her. Please, do not signal unless bidding. Hallie lowered it 1 inch. Soren looked amused. Careful, Hallie, Soren said. Some rooms cost more than delivery bike courage. Hallie said. You lost the hotel to Boots. Do not teach pricing. The auction room snorted. Soren's smile thinned. He turned to Bart. Mr. Lang, you wanted your credit access restored. Tell Mr. Weil what people do when locked dollars run out. Bart stood too fast. They borrow, Bart said, and eventually they sign. Margot Ellis looked up from her file. Northlake Trust still has you under review, Margot said. Bart sat down faster. Gretchen tried next because villains love a shared coffin. Gretchen said, vendors follow whoever controls the corridors. Tokens do not stop rent. The conference doors shook from the hallway. A chant rolled through the wall. Gold tokens! Gold tokens! Gold tokens! The old Railyard vendors had come before sunrise. Soren's eyes cut toward the sound. Good! He had bought silence upstairs and forgotten breakfast people wake early. Sky lifted her phone halfway. Crowd is outside, Sky said. I did not invite them. The chicken did. The host cleared his throat again. He wanted order. Poor little man. Soren lifted his paddle higher. Second bid, Soren said. Add personal guarantee against Fenwick collateral. The screen accepted. Laura's father stepped back. Soren spoke to him like Laura was furniture between them. Your lab needs clean routes, insurance, and stable partners, Soren said. My bid protects all three. Laura's father looked at Laura. For 1 bad second, he looked tempted by fear. Soren saw that fear and pressed. Your daughter is brilliant, Soren said. Brilliance needs a wall around it. Laura laughed once. You keep offering walls, Laura said. I keep noticing doors behind you. Chase shifted near the side table. He had followed Laura down from the ballroom and now looked trapped between sister and sponsor. Soren snapped his fingers without looking at him. Chase, Soren said, stand with your family. Chase took 1 step toward Laura. Hallie tapped the paddle against her palm. Chase stopped. Tiny growth again. Still ugly. Still moving. I took the $10 bill from my wallet and placed it on the table. The room went quiet. Dirk laughed first. He should have learned. He never did. That is it? Dirk said. The magic groom brought lunch money. Gretchen joined him. $10 does not buy streets. Bart stared harder. He knew better, but fear makes cowards hope. Math changes sides. The private lender whispered. Old 10? Soren smiled. Carson, Soren said. Northlake Drama does not own the city. I slid the bill toward the host. Enter it, I said. The host looked at Soren. I leaned on the table. If you need permission from a bidder to record another bid, I said, say that out loud. The host looked at the room, at Margot, then at the bill. He took it with 2 fingers and placed it under the verification glass built into the table. The screen flickered. 1 green line appeared, then a second, then a third. Locked tender verified. Dirk stopped laughing. The screen recalculated. Soren's bid shrank on the display like someone had pulled air from it. My 10 stayed bright. The host's voice cracked. Bid accepted, the host said. Controlling interest in Port Meridian Holdings awarded to Carson Weil. My phone buzzed again. Friar's Corner. Gate opened. Who do we thank? I looked at Soren. Breakfast money, I said. Soren's paddle hit the table. Manual review, Soren said. The host looked at the screen, then at my 10, then at the vendors chanting outside. The transfer protocol is final, the host said. Soren leaned over the table. I said review it. I looked at the host. Is he bidding? I asked, or begging the scoreboard? The host's mouth opened and closed. Hallie helped him. Begging, Hallie said. The room heard it. Soren heard them hear it. That was worse. The hallway chant punched through the wall. The vendors outside heard the screen before half the room believed it. Hallie stood on her chair and lifted the paddle. He bought the city roads with breakfast money, Hallie shouted. The host panicked. Sold! Adjacent garage package to paddle 7. Hallie froze. I looked at the paddle in her hand. She looked at the screen. A new line flashed. Parking garage transfer accepted. Hallie slowly sat down. I may have purchased a garage, she said. Juno laughed so hard she had to turn around. I pointed at Hallie. No more enthusiasm near numbers. She hugged the paddle to her chest. It heard Soren and acted. Side chaos with property rights. My family was getting expensive. Soren's face stayed flat. Bart's did too. The host tried to regain control. The garage transfer is separate from the holding interest. Hallie looked at him. Does it come with vending machines? The host blinked. Possibly. Then I accept responsibility, Hallie said. I said, you accepted it by accident. She patted the paddle. Same family tradition. That little joke broke the room worse than a speech. Soren had threatened corridors and collateral. Hallie had turned one piece of his map into snack territory. Bart turned on Soren. You said Old Tender could be capped, Gretchen snapped. You said the district corridors would return to me, Dirk said. You said Harbor Line would need me after Weil ran out of friends. The private lender backed toward the coffee, whispering, I was never here. Juno called from the exit. Funny, you shoes keep being places. He stopped backing up and chose a chair instead. Bart slapped his palm on the table. Soren promised Old Tender could be neutralized. Margot looked at him. You promised Alana discretion. Your promises have a short shelf life, Sky whispered. Northlake Shade has a tie clip. They started blaming Soren before I spoke again. Soren looked at them like he had stepped in something public. Sit down, he said. Nobody did. Alana pounded the conference door from the lobby side. Her voice came through muffled and furious. Carson, if you bought the city, I have a claim. Every head turned. Sky lifted one finger toward the door. Can we keep her outside and still hear her? This acoustics package is excellent. The hotel director did not open the door. Alana's own greed had become hallway ambience. Rick Dyer's voice joined hers for one doomed second. Family should be allowed inside, the hotel director answered through the door without raising her voice. The family list is controlled by the buyer. Sheila Dyer said something about sincerity. Hallie looked at me. Do they ever learn new words? No, I said. They bought one dictionary and circled property. The room laughed. Even Laura's father did, quietly, like the sound surprised him. Alana stopped pounding. Good. Shame had finally found the mute button. Laura's father rose slowly. He faced Laura, not Soren. Fenwick Energy Lab project control returns to Laura, he said. Today. No outside partner can hold it over her birthday, her routes, or her work. Laura's face softened for half a second. Then she caught Soren watching and sharpened again. Thank you, Laura said. Next time, trust me before the auction. Her father nodded. Good. Family correction, public and painful. Soren's expression finally cracked at the edge. You think one accepted bid gives you loyalty? Soren asked me. The hallway doors opened behind him. The vendors pushed into view, held back by hotel staff who were no longer trying very hard. Gold fry tokens flashed. Friar's corner bags waved. The florist had petals in her hair for some reason and looked ready for war. Vivienne stepped beside me. Harbor Line operations can update district service routes by noon, she said. Margot added, Northlake can lock the transfer record now. I held up one hand. After people stop threatening each other, I said. Margot nodded and closed the file. That mattered. The bid had done the damage. The file only put a lock on the door after the thief tripped. Soren looked toward the glass wall, where Port Meridian was waking up beneath us. He had built the room to show me the city. Then I bought the handle. He turned away first. That reaction was worth more than the screen. My phone buzzed. Mina, I answered. Mina said. Soren's drivers are moving downstairs. They tried to box the exit. I parked sideways. Jude shouted in the background. She almost scratched the black car. Mina said, almost is a love language. Then her voice cut sharp. Wait, Mina said. Private security just closed the lower garage shutters. Lara and Hallie went down with the paddle and the folder. They are inside. I looked across the room. Lara's chair was empty. Hallie's chair was empty. So was Chase's. Soren's smile returned in a smaller, uglier shape. Bram Kovic appeared at the service door with 2 security men behind him. He looked at Soren first, then at me. Bram said, garage level, now. The auction screen still showed my name over Port Meridian Holdings. Outside, the vendors were still chanting. $10 had bought the city pressure points on screen. Soren's last answer was to lock my sister and Laura under my own new building. I picked up the 10 from the table and put it back in my wallet. Then I walked toward the garage with the whole room following my anger. The lower garage shutters came down before we reached the first stairwell. Metal slammed against concrete. Then Hallie shouted from below, "Carson, tell your new garage it has terrible manners." Good. If she was insulting architecture, she was breathing. Laura's voice came right after hers. 2 guards, 1 service van, Bram at the ramp, Chase is here and useless so far. Also good. Laura gave inventory under pressure. Chase got graded live. Fair. Soren Pell walked behind me with Vivian Ames, Margot Ellis, Sky Latham, Juno Paris, vendors, and half the ruined auction crowd pressing after him. He had lost Port Meridian Holdings on screen. Now he wanted a smaller room with fewer witnesses. Too bad for him. Sky had a phone, the vendors had lungs, and Hallie had an auction paddle she should never have been allowed to keep. At the garage door, Bram Kovic stood beside the closed shutter with his event men blocking the keypad. Mina Shore's car sat sideways behind them, nose inches from a black sedan. Jude Kellen stood behind Mina with one hand braced on the roof, looking ready to fight the entire parking structure for his girlfriend. Mina rolled down her window. "I did not scratch it," Mina said. Jude said, "She has said that 6 times. I said, proud of you both." Bram pointed at me. "Sign Port Meridian Holdings back," Bram said. "Then the girls walk out." Soren reached the bottom step and adjusted his cuff. "This can still be civil," Soren said. Hallie yelled from behind the shutter. "Your civil has hostage seasoning." The vendors laughed behind me. Soren's jaw flexed. Bram hit the shutter with his fist. "Quiet," Bram barked. A second later, something cracked inside the garage. A guard yelped. Hallie shouted, "The panel voted!" I closed my eyes for one breath. My sister had weaponized municipal acquisition. Proud moment. Horrifying object. Laura called through the gap. Hallie disarmed one guard. "Chase is still deciding whether legs work," Chase yelled. "I am thinking," Hallie shouted. "Think faster, flower box." Soren looked at Bram. "Open it enough to pass the papers," Soren said. Bram did not move. That was new. Bram looked at Soren like the cream suit had started smelling cheap. "You said the auction was controlled," Bram said. Soren's eyes sharpened. "Do your job." Bram laughed once. His laugh sounded like invoice damage. "My job was to handle vendors, birthday access, and pressure," Bram said. "You lost the district, lost the hotel, lost the holding company, and missed the second payment." The garage got very quiet. Sky lifted her phone higher. Bram saw it and kept talking anyway. "You hired me to scare Carson Weil after Old Railyard, lock down Laura's birthday, and run this garage," Bram said. There it was. The Bram loop paid in concrete air. Soren's old money polish cracked straight through. "You word for discretion," Soren said. Bram looked at the vendors, the cameras, the hotel staff, and me. "Discretion ended when you stopped paying," Bram said. Bram stepped away from the keypad. Soren went pale with anger, which was honestly an upgrade from beige. Bram's men looked at Bram, then at Soren. One lowered his hand from his jacket, another backed away from Mina's car. Money had hired them. Missing money fired them. Poetic enough for criminals. I stepped to the keypad. Soren moved to block me. Juno came forward, off-duty and smiling without warmth. "Touch him," Juno said, "and I become very interested in being on duty later." She made Soren choose in front of witnesses. He moved aside. The shutter lifted halfway. Inside, Hallie stood with the auction paddle raised like a ridiculous shield. One guard sat on the concrete holding his wrist. Laura stood beside a service van with the Fenwick Energy Lab folder tucked under one arm. Chase stood between Laura and the second guard. He was shaking. Still standing, though. Laura looked at him. "Chase," she said, "if this is another act, I will freeze your allowance until your grandchildren apologize." Chase swallowed. "It is not," Chase said. "I am tired of being Soren's cheapest idiot." Hallie lowered the paddle an inch. "Cheapest invitation," she corrected. Chase nodded. "That too." The second guard reached toward Laura's folder. Chase shoved him. The guard stumbled into the van door. Chase looked shocked by his own usefulness. Laura kept her arms down. Good. Some growth deserved a receipt first. She only said, "Stand there and keep standing." Chase did. Soren snapped. "Chase, you do not get to choose sides after what your family owes me." Laura turned on him. "My family owes you nothing," Laura said. "My father restored my project control upstairs, and Carson bought the pressure points you used to threaten us. You have a suit and a tantrum." The vendors made a noise that almost became applause. Hallie said, "Also bad parking." Mina honked once from outside the shutter. Soren looked around at every person who had stopped moving for him. Even the guard stopped looking to him first. Then my phone lit with a prompt. "City claim, city scale locked dollar, spend complete. Choose control path. Personal control or shared claim." The system offered domination like it was a menu item. I looked at Soren. He still thought ownership meant people had to kneel. I had seen enough kneeling for one reset. I opened the option and chose shared claim. Name claim. I typed 3 words. Weil Community Trust. The garage badge printer on the valet desk woke up like a startled animal. So did the portable event printer from the auction table upstairs, still carried by a hotel assistant who looked deeply done with rich people. Cards started spitting out, white plastic, black letters, gold strip, Weil Community Trust. Under each name field sat a tiny gold token mark. Hallie stared. Did the city just make trading cards? I said. Stakeholder IDs, apparently chicken money had range. The Friar's Corner owner pushed through the crowd and held up the first gold fry token he had given me. The card printer chirped. His card came out first. He took it with both hands. Soren lunged for the printer. Hallie stepped across his path and tapped the paddle against the concrete. Careful, Hallie said. This thing owns a garage and has tasted blood. Soren stopped. He actually stopped. The paddle had more authority over him than half the auction room. Embarrassing but historically accurate. The Friar's Corner owner clipped the card beside his gold token. Next came the florist. A coffee stall owner followed. A student from East Harbor University held up a bent token Hallie had given him after he filmed Chase's kneeling apology. The printer spat out his card too. Hallie squinted at him. You still owe me the full video file. The student nodded fast. Sent already. Good. Education was healing. Vivienne took one next. Sky followed. Aaron Clove arrived breathless from the stairwell with Hallie's corrected record clutched under one arm and no clipboard shield left. Aaron took her card and looked at Hallie. Your name is spelled right, Aaron said. Hallie nodded once. Keep improving. Jude got a card. Mina got one through the car window. Margot got one and immediately looked offended by how badly it was formatted. I will improve this later, Margot said. Of course you will, I said. Vivienne read hers, then looked at me. You are giving city control away, Vivienne said. Soren laughed, sharp and desperate. He is weakening himself, Soren said. You cannot own a city by handing pieces to vendors and strays. I looked at the people holding cards. Vendors who had watched Gretchen kneel. Employees who watched Dirk lose his badge. Jude, whose mother was sleeping in a VIP room. Mina, who had left a showroom with keys piled behind her. Laura, who still clutched her project. Hallie, who held an auction paddle like a family crest. I am making sure you have to threaten everyone in person, I said. Soren had no answer fast enough. Vivienne looked at her card, then at the garage doors. Harborline can move vendors through the east corridor by lunch, Vivienne said. And payroll stays clean. Margot looked at hers. Northlake will stop pretending small accounts are small. Sky turned her card toward the camera. Flashdeck is going to need a new tag for rich men losing to poultry tokens. Juno took no card until I held one out. Off duty, she said. Aftermath, I said. She took it. The cards changed the room before the system finished glowing. Each person holding one stopped watching me and started watching the nearest exit, guard, camera, and threat. The room had names holding the line now. Soren pointed at Bram. You are still under contract, Soren snapped. Bram looked at his own men. One had already taken a trust card from a vendor who offered it like a joke and meant it like a warning. Bram shook his head. No employer worth bleeding for, Bram said. Then he walked out. His men followed. Bram left without apology. Men like him rarely discovered manners on the way out. He did abandon Soren in front of everyone. That paid better. Soren grabbed Chase by the sleeve. Chase looked at Lara. Then at Hallie's paddle. Then at Soren's hand. Chase peeled Soren's fingers off one by one, the way I had peeled Alana's fingers off my coat at Northlake. I am done, Chase said. His voice shook, but it held. Lara looked at him for a long second. Good, Lara said. Start there. Soren stood alone between the half-open shutter and the crowd he had tried to buy. Alana Dyer appeared at the top of the garage ramp with Rick and Sheila behind her, because embarrassment apparently had a loyalty program. She saw the printed cards. Her eyes lit up. Carson, Alana called. I should have one. We were engaged. The garage went silent for half a beat. Sky turned the camera. Alana saw it and flinched. I took the reset penny from my pocket, the same one I had lifted from Cedar Row's porch rail before leaving, and held it up. You already got your current value, I said. Hallie whispered, cold? Vivienne whispered, accurate. Alana stepped back. Bart appeared behind her, saw Margot, saw the cards, and turned around without speaking. Smartest exit of his life. Rick tried to push forward. The Friar's Corner owner stepped into his path with a trust card in one hand and a gold token in the other. Stakeholders only, the owner said. Rick looked at me. I looked at the crowd behind the owner. Rick stopped. Sheila did too. For once, the Dyers understood a door without touching it. The system pulsed. City claim complete. Compounding wallet permanent. Shared claim active. The system gave me one line. The people holding cards did the blessing. That was enough for a garage full of people who now had a reason to stand. Soren backed toward the black sedan Mina had boxed in. Mina rolled forward 2 inches. The sedan's bumper almost kissed the wall. Jude squeaked again. Mina said, "Still no scratch." Soren looked at the trapped car, the open cameras, the vendors, Bram's empty place, Chase standing by Laura and me. His polished mask finally failed. "You cannot keep them loyal," Soren said. Hallie walked up beside me, paddle on her shoulder. "He does not have to keep us," Hallie said. "You made us choose." That landed harder than anything I could have said. Lara stepped beside Hallie. Vivienne stepped in next. Sky followed with her camera up. Jude and Mina joined them, then Aaron, Margot, Juno, and the vendors with Goldfry tokens flashing against trust cards. Soren had built every stage to isolate one person at a time. The last stage gave him a crowd. Juno finally lifted her phone. "Now," Juno said, "I can call this in as Aftermath." I nodded. Aftermath was allowed. We had already made the turn. Police lights arrived later. Reports arrived later. Lawyers arrived later with their little paper shoes. None of them got the payoff. They only swept glass after the party. Soren was escorted out through a side ramp with no Bram, no Chase, no ballroom, no city package, and no audience still willing to clap for him. The leftovers tried to scatter after him. Gretchen Pry reached the vendor line first and stopped when 3 trust cards lifted in front of her. The florist smiled at her. "Rent questions go through the trust now." Gretchen turned around and found Sky's camera waiting. She chose silence, which might have been her first profitable decision. Dirk Elson slipped toward the service door. Vivienne raised her Harborline tablet without looking at him. "Badges stay dead," Vivienne said. Dirk changed doors. The private lender opened his phone, saw Aaron Clove watching, and deleted her contact in front of everyone. Aaron held Hallie's corrected record higher. Bart Lang looked for Margot Ellis. Margot gave him one polite banker smile. He left before she used words. That was the final audit I cared about. Everyone who had touched the leash felt it snap back once. Alana watched from outside the garage line until Sky's viewers started chanting about the penny again. Then she left too, dragging her parents and whatever remained of their sincerity business. I kept the old $10 bill. The first Goldfry token stayed in my pocket. I gave away the city pressure points Soren wanted to use as leashes, and somehow, that made my grip on Port Meridian stronger. Funny world. Before the reset, people called me broke because my cash looked small. After the reset, they called me dangerous because my cash stayed old. By sunrise, nobody in that garage was calling me either. They were walking behind me. Hallie bumped my shoulder with the paddle. "So," Hallie said, "do I get to keep the garage?" I looked at the parking garage sign, the trust cards, the vendors, Laura's tired smile, Mina's sideways car, Vivienne's raised eyebrow, Sky's live feed, Margot already correcting card formatting, and Soren's empty spot. "Only if you stop bidding with your feelings," I said. Hallie hugged the paddle. "No promises, that was fair. $10 had bought the city. The people holding the tokens carried it into the street.